At my father-in-law's 70th birthday party, my mother-in-law looked at me like a servant and ordered, "Go upstairs and get his heart medication. Hurry up and stop embarrassing this family." I walked away while everyone downstairs laughed like I didn't exist. But inside my husband's desk drawer, I found more than medicine. I found a $120,000 job offer from New York and an email from my own account rejecting it. There was only one problem. I never wrote that email. That was when I realized my husband had buried my future for years. Welcome to Her Drama Stories. Before we dive in, drop a comment. Have you ever discovered something about someone you trusted that completely changed everything? Yes or no, your experience might help someone else. Quick reminder. Some details are fictionalized for storytelling. Any resemblance to real situations is coincidental. What matters is the message at its heart. My name is Leora Bailey, 28 years old, and the document in my hands just rewrote 5 years of my life. But let me back up 6 minutes to when I still believed my own failure. Downstairs, jazz piano filled the Wolf family residence. Lester's 70th birthday party in full swing. 50 guests packed into the living room and spilling onto the back patio. I'd spent the afternoon arranging flowers, setting out champagne flutes, and making sure every surface gleamed. That's what I did. That's who I'd become. Leora. Viveka Wolf called from across the room, her 60-year-old frame draped in silk that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She gestured sharply. "Dad needs his heart medicine from Thane's desk drawer. Top left. The party can't stop for this." I nodded and headed for the stairs. I'd climbed them 10,000 times in 5 years of marriage, always carrying something for someone else. Medicine, files, the good scotch from the locked cabinet. Viveka treated me like household staff, and somewhere along the way, I'd stopped correcting her. My husband Thane stood near the piano laughing with 3 men in expensive suits. At 33, he'd made senior executive at Drummond Media 2 years ago, industrial marketing steel suppliers contracts worth millions. He looked good tonight in his tailored blazer, the kind of handsome that photographs well at company events. He didn't glance up as I passed. I climbed the familiar stairs to the second floor, past family photos that never included me. The hallway smelled like Viveka's lavender perfume and old money. Thane's office door stood half-open, light spilling into the dim corridor. The desk sat in the center of the room, dark cherry wood polished to a mirror shine. I pulled the top left drawer. Unlocked. In 5 years of marriage, Thane had never once left this drawer unlocked. He kept it secured with a combination lock, changed the code. Quarterly told me it contained sensitive work documents. I'd accepted that explanation the same way I'd accepted everything else quietly without pushing back. The medicine bottle sat right on top, orange plastic against dark wood. I reached for it, then stopped. Beneath the bottle rested a cardboard document box, the kind that holds old files. Faded. Corners soft with age. And sitting on the lid, barely visible, a single strand of silver blonde hair that could only belong to Viveka. She'd been in here, recently. I lifted the medicine bottle and set it aside. My hand hovered over the box. Downstairs, someone laughed high and bright, the sound of people who didn't spend their lives fetching things. I opened the box, papers neatly stacked. The top document bore a corporate letterhead I recognized immediately. Stratford & Klein, one of the top healthcare marketing firms in New York. My breath caught. "Dear Ms. Leora Bailey," it began. "We are pleased to offer you the position of Director of Strategic Marketing, effective July 15th, 2014. The world tilted. I sat down hard in Thane's leather chair and kept reading. Salary $120,000 annually. Signing bonus $15,000. Reporting to Dr. Montague Kirkland, Vice President of Medical Partnerships. The date at the top read July 10th, 2014. 5 years ago. 2 weeks before my wedding. How many minutes does it take for an entire life to rearrange itself? For me, it was 6, the time between opening that box and reading my own name on a future someone else stole. I'd applied for this position during my final semester at Northwestern. Strategic marketing for medical partnerships. Exactly what I'd studied, exactly what I wanted. I'd made it to 3 rounds of interviews, met the team, drafted a sample campaign. Then nothing. Silence. I'd called twice, left messages, finally gave up. Thane had held me while I cried, told me the corporate world was brutal, that I deserved better anyway, said maybe it was a sign we should focus on building our life together. I'd believed him. My hands shook as I set the offer letter aside and picked up the next document. An email printed on paper. The header showed my old Gmail address as the sender. The recipient mkirkland@stratfordklein.com. I read it once, then again. Dear Dr. Kirkland, I must respectfully decline this generous opportunity as I have decided to prioritize family commitments. Thank you for your consideration. Best regards, Lyora Bailey. The date July 12th, 2014. 2 days after the offer. 2 days before Thane told me they'd gone in another direction. I stared at the words, the formal phrasing, the stiff corporate tone. I'd never written this email. I didn't use words like respectfully or prioritize family commitments. I wrote the way I talked, casual, direct, maybe too honest. This sounded like someone trying to impersonate a professional they'd never met. The email address was mine. The decision was not. Thane had access to my email. He'd helped me set up the account, insisted on keeping a copy of the password in case of emergencies. I'd thought it was sweet, protective. I'd been so stupid. I didn't cry. Tears require surprise. And I wasn't surprised anymore, just cold. The coldness of someone waking up after sleeping too long in the same position. Viveka's perfume clung to the box. She'd touched this, known about this. Maybe she'd been the one to suggest it. Thane's mother always talking about how a woman's place was supporting her husband's career, how I should be grateful for the stability Thane provided. The signing bonus alone was $15,000. Where had that money gone? Into accounts I never saw. Payments for things that benefited everyone but me. I pulled out my phone and photographed everything. The offer letter, the forged email, the box itself. My hands stayed steady even as my pulse hammered in my ears. One more document remained at the bottom of the box, a hotel receipt printed on that slick thermal paper that fades over time. I could barely make out the details. The Ashford, downtown Chicago. Room 447. 2 names on the registration, Thane Wolfe and someone named Priya Lancaster. The date, November 2016. 3 years into our marriage. Downstairs, the jazz music swelled. Someone called for a toast. I heard Thane's voice boom across the crowd, confident, beloved, the son everyone admired. Everyone. I stood slowly, legs unsteady, and tucked the offer letter and forged email into my jacket pocket. Left everything else exactly as I'd found it, closed the drawer, picked up the medicine bottle, walked to the doorway and looked back at the desk one final time. The party was waiting. Viveka would wonder what took so long. Lester would get his medicine. The celebration would continue. But they didn't know I wasn't coming back down as the same woman who climbed these stairs. I descended slowly, the documents pressed against my ribs like evidence in a trial that hadn't started yet. It would. 18 steps separate the second floor from the living room. I counted every one as I descended, carrying 5 years of lies in my pocket. Lester's medicine bottle felt heavy in my left hand. The documents folded once, tucked against my ribs, burned through my jacket. The jazz piano faltered first, then the conversations. One by one, 50 guests turned to watch me come down those stairs. Something in my posture must have changed, because people moved without being asked. They parted like water. I reached the bottom step and walked straight through the center of the living room toward the coffee table, where Thane stood with 3 executives. He held scotch mid-laugh at some joke I'd never hear the punchline to. His smile faded when he saw my face. "Lyora, sweetheart," he said, voice smooth and controlling. "Did you find Dad's medicine? The party's just getting started." I set the medicine bottle down. Then I pulled out the documents, the job offer first, then the forged email. "I found something," I said. My voice came out steady, cold. "Not medicine." Thane's eyes dropped to the papers. The color drained from his face, tan to pale to gray in 3 seconds. I turned the document so everyone nearby could see the letterhead, Stratford and Klein, the salary figure, the date. This email declining a $120,000 job offer was sent from our house 2 days before our wedding. I never wrote it. Explain. The room went silent, even the piano stopped. Thane reached for my arm. "Not here, not now. Let's go upstairs and talk about this privately." I pulled back. "I've been private for 5 years while you buried my future in a locked drawer. We're talking here. He looked around at the 50 witnesses watching his world unravel. Viveka stepped forward from the kitchen, still holding champagne like this was just another party problem to manage. She didn't look shocked. She looked irritated. Lyora, she said, voice firm and unapologetic, this house needed you more than that job. We're family. Family takes care of each other. I stared at this 60-year-old woman in silk who'd spent 5 years ordering me around like hired help, who'd never once thanked me for the 1,000 meals I'd cooked or the endless errands I'd run. Takes care of each other, I repeated. Or takes from each other because for 5 years I'm the only one who's been giving. How many witnesses does it take to make the truth undeniable? 50? Apparently. 50 people who would remember the night the perfect Wolf family shattered in their living room. My eyes swept across the crowd and stopped on a woman in a burgundy dress standing near the fireplace. Priya Lancaster, 31, and striking Thane's senior assistant at Drummond Media. I'd met her twice at company events. She'd smiled with perfect teeth and called me Thane's lovely wife. She wasn't smiling now. She was watching with the stillness of someone who already knew every secret being exposed. No shock, no surprise. She knew. She'd always known. I turned back to Thane. The hotel receipt was in the box too. The Ashford, November 2016. You and Priya Lancaster. His jaw clenched. Across the room, Priya's hand tightened around her wine glass. That was a work trip, Thane said. A conference. We had separate... Don't... I cut him off. Don't lie in front of all these people. You've lied enough. Kellen Wolfe. Thane's 32-year-old brother stood near the kitchen holding a beer. He lived in his parents' basement, had never held a job longer than 6 months. He was watching me like I'd just pulled a gun. Maybe I had, a paper gun loaded with truth. I looked down at my left hand. The wedding ring caught the chandelier light, white gold, small diamond, simple and classic. Thane had proposed with it 5 years ago, told me he'd saved for months to buy it. The job offer listed a $15,000 signing bonus. The ring slid off easily. My hand had grown thinner over 5 years of serving everyone but myself. I placed it on the coffee table next to the documents. The metal made a small click against the glass. $15,000 signing bonus, I said quietly. The exact amount you told me you'd save to buy this ring. You bought my wedding ring with my own stolen money. The ring caught the chandelier light one last time as I set it down. A circle of lies bought with stolen dreams returned to the man who'd never actually owned it. Viveka gasped. Leora, you're being dramatic. That money went into our joint account. We never had a joint account, I interrupted. Just your son's account that I wasn't allowed to access without permission. I picked up my purse from the entry table back when I was still the invisible woman who arranged flowers and fetched medicine. Thane's voice rose, cracking. Leora, you can't just where are you going? You have nothing, no money, no... I have these, I said, tapping the documents. And I have 50 witnesses who just watched your mother admit you stole my career because the house needed a servant. I walked to the front door. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody spoke. The September night air hit my face cool clean. Nothing like the suffocating warmth of that living room. I got in my car and closed the door. Silence. Complete ringing silence after the noise of revelation. My hands shook on the steering wheel not from fear, but from the adrenaline of 5 years of obedience ending in 60 seconds. I pulled out my phone and dialed the one person who'd warned me about Thane from the beginning. Opal Griffin, my best friend since college and now a corporate lawyer in Chicago, answered on the first ring. Opal, I said. Just her name. But she already knew everything from how I said it. Where are you? She asked. I'm coming to get you. I started the engine. In the rearview mirror, the Wolf house was lit up like a celebration, but the party was over. I'm already gone, I told her. I'm coming to you. The highway stretched ahead, empty and dark. Opal's voice filled my car through the speaker. Drive straight here, she said. Don't stop, don't go back for anything. I'll have coffee ready. I won't go back, I told her. I'm never going back. 5 years ago, when I told Thane about New York, he opened a bottle of wine and called me brilliant, then waited for me to fall asleep before he destroyed everything. But let me start where it actually began, before I knew what love could cost. It wasn't the first time he'd done this. A year earlier, he'd intercepted a call from Yale Medical School, answered my phone while I showered, told them I was withdrawing my application. I never knew that call existed. But the Stratford and Klein offer, that one I almost had in my hands. April 2014. I was 23 years old, 2 weeks from my wedding, living in a studio apartment in Lincoln with mismatched furniture and dreams bigger than the rent I could barely afford. The email arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Dear Ms. Bailey, congratulations on advancing to the final interview round for Director of Strategic Marketing. We were impressed by your presentation and would like to schedule a conversation with Dr. Montague Kirkland, VP of Medical Partnerships, for next week. My hands shook so hard I had to read it 3 times. I called Opal immediately. She was finishing her second year of law school in Chicago, studying for finals in some library that smelled like old books and ambition. Opal, I said, voice cracking. It's the final round. Montague Kirkland himself signed the email. Director level straight out of college. I knew they'd see it, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. But have you told Thane yet? You're getting married in 2 weeks. How will he feel about New York? He'll understand, I said. I believed it completely. He loves me. He wants what's best for me. Opal paused long enough that I heard the silence. Just be careful how you tell him. Some men say they want you to succeed until you actually start flying. Not Thane, I insisted. He's different. I told him that night over pasta I'd made from a box sitting in our shared apartment with wedding invitations still stacked on the kitchen counter. He listened to the whole story. The interview, the salary, the position title that sounded too important for someone who'd graduated 3 months ago. He stood up, pulled me into his arms, kissed the top of my head. New York, he said, voice warm and steady. Wow, I'm so proud of you. We'll figure out the distance. What matters is you doing what you're meant to do. You really mean that? I asked, searching his face. I was afraid you'd ask me to stay. Never, he said. I would never clip your wings. He opened a bottle of wine. We toasted to my future, to our future, to making long-distance work, until he could find something in New York, too. I remember thinking I'd found a rare man, the kind who loved without needing to own. I fell asleep on the couch around midnight, head on his shoulder, feeling safer than I'd ever felt. What does it cost to trust someone completely? For me, it was 5 years, one career, and a version of myself I'll never get back. What I didn't know 3 weeks earlier when I was stressing about application formatting, Thane had offered to help. Just give me your email password, he'd said. I'll log in and make sure everything looks professional before you send it. I'd given it to him without hesitation. He was my fiancé. We were about to promise our lives to each other. That night, after I fell asleep, he sat alone with my laptop, used the password I'd handed him like a gift, composed an email in my voice, or what he imagined my voice should sound like. Formal, apologetic, grateful but declining. I must respectfully decline this generous opportunity as I have decided to prioritize family commitments. 2 days later, he held me while I cried over the rejection he'd fabricated, told me the corporate world was brutal, said maybe it was a sign we should focus on building our life together. I believed every word. The highway exit for Chicago appeared ahead. I merged right following GPS directions to Opal's apartment in Wicker Park. 2:03 a.m. I knocked softly, but she opened the door before my knuckles hit wood a second time. She was still dressed, eyes alert. She'd been waiting. Come in, she said, pulling me inside. I'll make coffee. Then you're going to tell me everything, and I'm going to help you destroy him. Her apartment smelled like vanilla candles and old law textbooks. I sat at her kitchen table while she moved through familiar motions, grinding beans, heating water, pulling out yellow legal pads and 3 different colored pens. He forged my rejection, I said when she set the coffee in front of me. 5 years ago. The email I thought I sent declining the offer, I never wrote it. Show me everything you have, she said, voice shifting into the lawyer tone I'd heard her use on phone calls with difficult opposing counsel. Documents, photos, timeline. We're building a case. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photographs I'd taken in Thane's office. The offer letter, the forged email. She studied each one, zooming in on details, taking notes in precise handwriting. The email was sent from your account, she said, writing. We need to prove who was sitting at the keyboard. That means device fingerprints, IP addresses, metadata, timestamps. How do we get that? I asked. The email is 5 years old. Email providers keep metadata for years, Opal said. We'll need a forensic IT specialist and possibly a subpoena. But first, do you still have access to that email account? I stared at her. Yes, I still use it, same password. Opal's pen moved across the yellow paper, transforming my trauma into evidence, my grief into exhibits. A through Z, the alchemy of turning pain into power, into. She wrote dates, drew arrows, connecting events, circled dollar amounts. The coffee grew cold. Dawn started turning the sky gray outside her windows. When did Thane last change your email password? She asked, suddenly looking up. I thought back through 5 years of marriage, tried to remember a single time he'd mentioned security updates' new credentials, realized with cold clarity he never did. Opal saw the recognition on my face. The corner of her mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but the expression I'd seen her wear in mock trial competitions right before she demolished the opposition. If the password's still the same, she said slowly, every piece of evidence we need might still be sitting in that account. Emails he sent, drafts he saved, digital fingerprints he thought he'd buried along with your ambition. Opal opened her laptop and pulled up my old email account login page. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly. Wait, I said. Before we do this, there's something else. Something I need to tell you about. The first crack in my denial came not from documents or lawyers, but from a college friend staring at my hands in a Lincoln supermarket like they belonged to someone else. 1 week before the party, September 7th, 2019, I was pushing a shopping cart through the produce section, working through Viveka's party preparation list. Champagne, artisan cheese, flowers for centerpieces. The overhead lights flickered and buzzed, making everything look slightly too bright, slightly unreal. Leora Bailey. I turned to see Anouk Travers standing near the organic tomatoes holding a basket with a single bottle of wine. She looked successful, tailored blazer leather bag, Bluetooth earpiece tucked in her ear. We'd been in the same marketing program at Northwestern, graduated the same year. She was staring at me like I was a ghost. Anouk, I said, forcing a smile. Hi, just doing some shopping for a family party. Her eyes traveled from my face down to my hands gripping the cart handle. I followed her gaze and saw what she saw, cracked skin nails, bitten short bleach stains on my knuckles from cleaning Viveka's kitchen that morning. Are you? She started, then stopped. Started again. Are you okay? I mean, you look... I thought you'd be in New York by now. Plans changed, I said, voice tight. The offer fell through, I got married instead. She nodded slowly, not buying it, but too polite to push. Then she said something that lodged in my chest like a splinter. You were ranked first in our entire program, she said quietly. The professor said you'd be running campaigns in Manhattan by now, not... She trailed off, looking at my cart. Party supplies. Someone else's champagne. Someone else's celebration. You were the only student a major corporation actively recruited, she continued. I remember Professor Harrison telling the whole class that we should aim to be as strategic as Leora Bailey. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder. I could smell cleaning chemicals on my clothes. That was a long time ago, I managed. Anouk stepped closer, a voice dropping. Leora, are you really okay? Because you don't look like yourself anymore. I made some excuse about being tired, about the party planning, about how marriage changes priorities. She gave me her card anyway, senior brand strategist at some firm I'd never heard of. Told me to call if I ever needed anything. I threw the card away in the parking lot. When did I stop seeing myself clearly? Was it gradual? The slow erosion of a woman into a servant? Or was there one moment I looked in the mirror and failed to recognize my reflection? I told Opal about the encounter as we sat in her kitchen. She listened without interrupting, pen still poised over her legal pad. Anouk saw what I couldn't, I said. Or wouldn't, that I'd disappeared. Opal set down her pen. Who else saw it? The question hung between us. Who else had watched me shrink and said nothing? Who else had evidence I didn't know existed? I need to call my mother, I said suddenly. Denise Bailey answered on the second ring, voice shaking. Leora, baby, are you safe? Viveka called me this morning saying terrible things. I'm safe. I cut her off. I'm with Opal in Chicago. Mom, I need to tell you something. I explained everything. The documents, the forged email, the 5 years of systematic deception. She went so quiet I thought the call had dropped. Mom, baby, she said, voice breaking. I need to tell you something I should have said 3 years ago. My hand tightened around the phone. I was at an education conference in Omaha, she continued. 2016. I sat next to a man during lunch. We were making small talk about our children. When I mentioned your name, he stopped eating. Who was he? Montague Kirkland, she said. From Yale Medical School. He asked if I knew you said you were his top candidate for a position years ago, but mysteriously rejected the offer. He seemed genuinely confused, like something didn't add up. I couldn't breathe. What did you tell him? That you got married? That you were happy? She paused. But he looked at me like I'd said something that confirmed his suspicions rather than explain them. Like your rejection had never made sense to him. Why didn't you tell me? Because every time I questioned Thane, you defended him, she said quietly. Every time I suggested something was wrong, you pulled away from me. I was terrified of losing you completely. Opal was writing furiously, mouthing questions at me. I put the phone on speaker. Mom, I said, do you have any evidence? Anything that seemed off over the years? Silence. Then, I have things. A text Thane sent to my phone by mistake 3 years ago, meant for someone named Priya. Photos from family events where things didn't look right. Receipts I found. I didn't delete them. You kept them, I whispered. I didn't know what else to do, she said, crying now. You defended him every time I questioned anything. I was waiting for you to be ready to hear it. My mother had been a lighthouse keeper for 3 years, watching from shore as I drowned, holding evidence like a rope she didn't know how to throw, until I finally swam close enough to grab it. Opal leaned toward the phone. Mrs. Bailey, this is Opal Griffin. What exactly do you have in that box? Denise's voice steadied, taking on the organized tone I remembered from childhood when she'd helped me with school projects. Text messages, 3 of them sent to my phone instead of whoever Priya is. Photos from holidays where Priya appears in the background. A hotel receipt from Chicago I found in Leora's car. I took a picture before I put it back. When can you send these to us? Opal asked. I can drive to Chicago tonight, Denise said immediately. I've been waiting 5 years to help my daughter. I'm not waiting another day. I looked at Opal across the kitchen table. Legal pads covered in timeline gaps we couldn't fill. My mother had been filling them in silence for 3 years. What evidence do you need? Denise asked. Everything I thought. We need everything you've been too afraid to show me. Everything, I told my mother. Bring everything you have. Denise promised to leave within the hour. After we hung up, Opal and I sat in the growing silence of her apartment, watching afternoon light fade through the windows. There's something else, I said. Something I need to tell you about Priya. Some threats announced themselves with violence. Priya Lancaster announced hers by walking into my dining room, wearing burgundy, the exact shade of my wedding colors. 6 days before the party, September 8th, 2019, I was carrying roasted chicken from the kitchen when the doorbell rang. Viveka answered it, and I heard her voice shift into the warm, welcoming tone she never used with me. Priya, darling, I'm so glad you could join us. I stopped in the doorway holding the serving platter. Priya Lancaster stood in the entryway wearing a burgundy dress that fit like it had been tailored specifically for her body. Her hair was perfect. Her smile was perfect. She handed Viveka a bottle of expensive wine like this was a planned dinner party, not a family meal. Thane speaks so highly of your work at Drummond, Viveka said, leading her into the dining room. It's wonderful to finally have you over. Finally, like this had been discussed, anticipated, welcomed. I set the chicken on the table. Thane stood up, smiled at Priya, pulled out a chair for her. Everyone, this is Priya Lancaster, my invaluable senior assistant. Priya, you know everyone except maybe my brother Kellen. She sat down at my table, in my house. While I served food I'd spent all afternoon preparing. Thank you for having me, Priya said, looking directly at me. Your home is beautiful. Someone clearly takes excellent care of it. She said it like a compliment. It landed like an assessment, the kind a woman makes when measuring her competition and finding it already defeated. Lester raised his wine glass. Viveka asked Priya about her work. Kellen barely looked up from his phone. Thane explained some project they were collaborating on using words like synergy and strategic alignment that meant nothing and everything. I returned to the kitchen for side dishes, heard them laughing at something Priya said, came back with roasted vegetables and bread. Priya followed me on my 3rd trip to the kitchen. Can I help with anything? She asked, voice quiet now that we were alone. I have it under control, I said, arranging dessert plates. You cook beautifully, she said, watching me work. Thane always mentions how you take care of everything here. He's very appreciative. The way she said appreciative made my skin crawl. Is there something you need? I asked, not looking at her. She reached into her purse, pulled out a cocktail napkin, white cloth expensive, and wrote something on it with a pen. Set it on the counter next to the dessert plates. Not yet, she said. But when you do, you'll know where to find me. She walked back to the dining room. I stood there staring at the napkin. The handwriting was confident looping. Call me when you're ready to know the truth, followed by a phone number. What does it mean when your husband's mistress walks into your home and your mother-in-law serves her wine? It means you were never fighting one person, you were fighting a system. I told Opal the story as we sat in her kitchen. She listened with the same focused intensity she'd given every detail for the past 2 days. Do you still have the napkin? She asked. In my bag. I don't know why I kept it. Because you knew, Opal said. Somewhere deep down, you knew you'd need it. She picked up her phone, scrolled through contacts. I'm going to call Kellen. Why? Because he's careless, she said, and careless people tell the truth by accident. She dialed, put the phone on speaker. It rang 3 times before Kellen answered. Yeah. Kellen, this is Opal Griffin. I'm Leora's attorney. I just have a few quick background questions for the asset documentation. This won't take more than 2 minutes. Are you free to talk? A pause. I guess, Kellen said. I could hear a video game in the background. I'm coordinating preliminary documentation for divorce asset evaluation. Just need to verify a few timeline details for accuracy. Okay, Kellen said. I could hear a video game in the background. What do you need? This won't take long. For our records, how long have you known Ms. Priya Lancaster, your brother's colleague? Priya, Kellen laughed. Oh, she's been around forever. I don't know, maybe 2 years. She comes to a lot of family stuff. Opal's pen froze mid-word. 2 years? Yeah, maybe longer. I've seen them together after company events and stuff. They're always working on presentations or whatever. Thane's big on teamwork. Approximately how many times would you estimate you've seen them together socially? Kellen paused. The video game sounds continued. I don't know, like a dozen. They seemed close. Mom really likes her, invites her to everything. Said Priya understands professional women, not like... He stopped. Not like, Opal prompted. Nothing, just that Mom appreciates how dedicated Priya is to her career. Can I go? I'm kind of in the middle of something. Just one more question. When did you first meet Ms. Lancaster? Maybe 2017 fall sometime. Thane brought her to Dad's birthday party that year. Or was it Thanksgiving? I don't really remember. That's very helpful. Thank you for your time. Opal hung up. The silence in her kitchen felt heavy. 2 years. Kellen said 2 years like it was nothing, like mentioning the weather, while Opal's pen carved the number into her legal pad deep enough to leave impressions on 3 pages beneath. He just extended the affair timeline by 18 months, Opal said quietly. Minimum. If Kellen noticed them together a dozen times, they were together 100. Viveka invited her, I said, voice flat. My mother-in-law invited my husband's mistress to family events for 2 years. Longer, Opal corrected. Kellen said 2017. We're in 2019. That's closer to 3 years, and he's not exactly detail-oriented. Could be longer. I thought about every family dinner I'd served, every holiday I'd cooked for, every gathering where Viveka had criticized my clothes, my hair, my contribution, while praising other women's professional accomplishments. Priya had been at some of those gatherings, and I'd been too busy serving to notice. I reached into my bag and pulled out the burgundy napkin I'd been carrying for a week, unfolded it on Opal's kitchen table. The phone number stared back at me in confident script. Call me when you're ready to know the truth. Opal looked at the napkin, then at me. Her expression shifted, the look of a chess player seeing the opponent's fatal mistake. She wants to talk, Opal said slowly, which means she's either stupid or desperate. Or both, I said. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy isn't your friend, Opal said. But they might be the witness you need. Not yet, I said, folding the napkin back into my bag. First, we need proof that stands up in court. Then we decide who we talk to and what we trade for it. Opal nodded. I know someone who can help us. A digital forensics specialist. If Thane touched your email, Vincent will find it. The number 847 doesn't sound sinister until a forensic specialist tells you it represents every time your husband secretly accessed your email over 5 years, reading, deleting, controlling. But I'm getting ahead of myself. September 18th, 2019. Opal drove us to a building in downtown Chicago that looked like every other office tower from the outside. Inside, the elevator took us to the 14th floor, where a frosted glass door read Holloway Digital Forensics. Vincent Holloway sat surrounded by humming servers and monitors displaying cascading code. He was 40-something with graying hair and the focused calm of someone who'd spent 2 decades extracting truth from metadata. He barely looked up when we entered. "Opal," he said, finishing something on his keyboard. "You said email fraud." "Systematic," Opal replied, settling into a chair across from his desk. "5 years minimum. We need device fingerprints, access logs, and evidence that will hold up under cross-examination." Vincent's eyes shifted to me for the first time. "You have the account credentials." I nodded. "Good." He pulled up a blank terminal. "Email headers are like DNA. Every device leaves a unique fingerprint processor ID operating system signature network adapter code. If someone used your account, I'll prove who, when, and from where." "How far back can you trace?" I asked. He smiled slightly. "Email providers keep metadata for 10 years minimum. Some keep it forever. If he touched your account, I'll find it." I showed him the photographs from my phone, the job offer, the forged rejection email. He pulled up software I'd never seen before, started typing commands that meant nothing to me. "The rejection email first," he said. "I'll extract the full header data." Code scrolled across his screen. Numbers, addresses, timestamps. He highlighted a section, zoomed in, cross-referenced it against some database. "Email sent September 12, 2014 at 11:47 p.m., he said, voice clinical and precise. "Device signature matches a Windows laptop with this specific processor ID. Give me a minute to trace the registration." More typing, more code. "Laptop registered to Thane Wolf, purchased August 2014 from Best Buy, Lincoln, Nebraska. Paid with credit card ending in 4739. Opal was writing everything down. "IP address." Vincent pointed at another section of code. "Residential broadband, 4782 Maple Street, Lincoln, Nebraska." He looked at me. "Your home address that year." I nodded. My throat felt tight. "Then this is definitive," Vincent said. "The email claiming to be from you was sent from your home address using your husband's laptop at midnight while you were presumably asleep. This holds up in any court." 847 times. I did the math while Vincent scrolled once every 2 days for 5 years. My husband sitting in our bedroom, reading my private correspondence, deleting my future one email at a time. But I didn't know that number yet. That came next. Vincent turned back to his screens. "Now for the access logs. I need your email credentials to pull server records." I typed in the address and password. The same password Thane had asked me to share 5 years ago. The password he'd never changed because he never expected me to check. Vincent hit enter, waited. The screen filled with data. He went very still. "How many times?" Opal asked quietly. Vincent scrolled down and down and down. 847 access events, he said finally. Same device fingerprint, between June 2014 and September 2019. 847 times, once every 2 days for 5 years. What was he doing? I asked. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Vincent opened detailed logs showing me actions Thane had taken. Reading emails, deleting them, creating filter rules, modifying your contact list. He set up auto-delete commands for any email from New York corporate domains specifically targeting recruitment firms and healthcare marketing companies. Every email from Manhattan, every recruiter who might have followed up, every opportunity that could have pulled me away deleted automatically before I ever saw it. "That's not infidelity," Opal said. "That's systematic stalking." Vincent nodded. "And it's prosecutable. This is evidence of wire fraud, identity theft, and digital surveillance. I can testify to every access, every modification, every deleted message." He kept working, cross-referencing Thane's device signature against other databases looking for patterns. Then he stopped, frowned at his screen. "This is odd," he said. Opal leaned forward. "What?" "The same device signature appears in access logs for a third email account." He turned the monitor so we could see. I. Lancaster at Drummond Media, starting March 2017, sporadic access through August 2019. Priya Lancaster, Thane's mistress, his senior assistant. "Was he monitoring her too?" I asked. Vincent shook his head slowly. "Different pattern. Your account shows forced access. He had your password and used it without permission. This account shows synchronized access patterns suggesting shared credentials. She gave him her password willingly. How many people does it take to bury someone alive? For me, it was 3. A husband who forged a mistress who helped, and a device that remembered everything they thought they'd hidden." Opal stared at the screen. Why would Priya give Thane her work email credentials? Coordination, Vincent said. If they're using email to plan something they don't want traced to his account, they'd need shared access to hers or what, I asked? He highlighted a specific date range. Or she's documenting evidence against him the same way he documented control over you. These access logs could prove conspiracy, or they could prove she's been gathering ammunition. Opal pulled the burgundy napkin from her bag. Priya's phone number in confident script. Call me when you're ready to know the truth. She said to call when you're ready. Opal murmured, staring at the napkin. I think she's been waiting to burn him too. The question is why and what she wants in exchange. Vincent printed out the forensic reports. 47 pages of metadata device fingerprints access logs, deleted message recovery. Everything we'd need to prove that Thane Wolfe hadn't just betrayed his wife, he'd systematically erased her professional existence one email at a time. What's your next move? Vincent asked. Opal looked at me. I looked at the reports. At 847 violations of privacy documented in clinical precision. At proof that couldn't be denied or explained away. We keep building the case, I said, and we figure out what Priya Lancaster really wants because nobody hands over their email password without a plan. We left Vincent's office with 47 pages of forensic evidence and a question neither of us wanted to ask if Priya gave Thane her email password. Was she helping him bury me or documenting the burial? We need to trace the signing bonus, Opal said. $15,000 doesn't disappear without leaving a trail. The bank account with my name on it had been a stage set for 5 years. I could see the numbers, but I'd never been allowed to touch them, transfer them, or know they were really mine. September 21st, 2019. Opal set up her laptop while I logged into the joint account online. I'd done this before occasionally to check balances when Thane asked, always viewing, never acting. I clicked on Statements, selected the date range, clicked Download. The screen flashed red, Insufficient permissions. Contact account administrator to modify access level. What does it say? Opal asked. I turned the laptop toward her. View only access, she said quietly. On a joint account. That's deliberate. He set it up so you could see money but never access it independently. He said it was easier if he managed the banking since I was busy with the house. Opal closed her eyes briefly. We'll get paper statements in person. There's a Chicago branch with the same system. 2 hours later, we spread 5 years of printed bank statements across Opal's conference table. She started with April 2014. 2 weeks before my wedding. April 15th, 2014. Deposit $15,000. Description employer. Signing bonus. Leora Bailey. There it is, Opal said. $15,000. Employer signing bonus with your name on it. I had no memory of seeing this notification discussing this money celebrating this deposit. I never saw it, never spent it. Thane handled wedding expenses, said he wanted to treat me. Opal traced down the page. The deposit sits for 14 days, then look at April 29th. April 29th, 2014. Withdrawal, $15,000. Transaction type cashier's check, $15,000. The exact amount Thane claimed he'd saved through sacrifice and planning. The exact amount I'd earned through intellect and merit. The exact amount he stole and then gave back to me disguised as devotion. Cashier's check requires in-person verification and photo ID, Opal said. Someone walked into the bank physically to request this. I thought back to April 29th, 2014. The day before my wedding. I was at my mother's house, I said. Final dress fitting, all afternoon. Thane said he had errands. Opal wrote on her legal pad. Errand was converting your signing bonus into an untraceable check except we know exactly where it went. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to 2014. When did he give you the ring? The question landed like a stone. The day before the wedding, I said. April 30th. He said he'd been saving for months that it represented his commitment. I cried because I felt so loved. Opal turned her phone toward me, 3 highlighted dates. April 29th. Cashier's check withdrawal, $15,000. April 30th, wedding eve ring presented. May 1st, wedding day. He withdrew your signing bonus on the 29th, Opal said. Gave you the ring on the 30th. Married you on May 1st wearing your own stolen money on your finger. A ring is supposed to be a promise. An unbroken circle of commitment. Mine was a noose made from my own rope, tightened with my own money, worn in ignorance that I was already captured. I looked down at my left hand. The ring was gone, left on the coffee table at the party, but the indent was still visible. A phantom circle carved by my own money I'd believed was love. He made me marry him wearing proof of his theft. He made you grateful for it, Opal said. Every time someone complimented the ring, you probably thanked him, told people how lucky you were. She was right. 100 times over 5 years, I'd looked at that ring and felt cherished. The ring had cost me everything. Thane had paid nothing. Can we prove this in court? Every transaction is time-stamped and documented, Opal said. Bank records are ironclad. The signing bonus went in April 15th. Thane withdrew it April 29th. If we can find the ring receipt, and I'm betting we can, we've got theft, fraud, and conversion of funds. She started making notes, building timelines, connecting dots. The wedding itself, how much did it cost? Thane said $20,000. He paid for everything. Opal flipped through pages. May 2014. Another cashier's check, $18,500, labeled wedding expenses. From the joint account, she nodded. Technically your account too. He spent community funds, then acted like he'd sacrificed his savings for you. Where did the $18,000 come from? I asked. Opal flipped back 2 pages. Your salary from the temp marketing job you held April through May 2014. You deposited 4 paychecks totaling just over $19,000. He withdrew $18,500 before the wedding and called it his contribution. I stared at the numbers. Every dollar in that wedding had been mine. Everything was a lie, I said. Every gesture, every gift, it was all staged with my own money. Opal's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then went still. What? Text from Vincent. She turned the phone. Found something in the I. Lancaster emails you need to see. Call me. I looked at the indent on my ring finger, 1,825 days of wearing my own theft disguised as devotion. Looked at the bank statements proving Thane had built our marriage on stolen money. Looked at Vincent's message about whatever Priya had been hiding. Call him, I said. Opal dialed. Put it on speaker. Vincent answered immediately. You found something? Opal asked. Yeah, Vincent said, voice careful. And you're not going to like it. Priya's been planning this longer than Thane has. What do you mean? I asked Vincent. I'll send you the files, he said. But Priya's been corresponding with divorce attorneys since January, 8 months before your party. She's playing a longer game than you think. He hung up. Opal and I sat in silence, processing what that meant. But we didn't have time to figure out Priya's endgame, because the next morning Thane made his move. September 23rd, 2019. Opal slid a folder across the conference table with the kind of deliberate calm that made my stomach drop. They submitted new evidence this morning, she said. Video evidence. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. My coffee had gone cold in its ceramic mug. What kind of video? Opal opened her laptop, turned it toward me. 47 seconds of surveillance footage. Thane's attorney claims it demonstrates mental instability and questions your fitness to manage assets. She pressed play. The screen showed a kitchen I recognized immediately, the Wolf House, the marble countertops I'd cleaned 1,000 times. And there I was standing at the sink, shoulders shaking, crying, sobbing, completely broken. The audio was crystal clear. My voice saying things I barely remembered. I can't do this anymore. I can't. The video lasted 47 seconds, then it cut to black. I stared at the screen. My fingernails dug into my palms. When was this? The timestamp says September 23rd, 2019, Opal said. But that's this week. This has to be older. I recognized it. The moment, the breakdown. That's from 6 months ago, I said, voice hollow. March, after the hospital. Opal looked at me. What hospital? I had a miscarriage, I said. The words came out flat, clinical. Early. 8 weeks. I went to the ER alone because Thane was at work. When I came home and told him, he said it was probably for the best, we weren't ready anyway. My own voice played through the laptop speakers, broken and desperate. I remembered standing at that sink for nearly an hour, trying to hold myself together. The video is only 47 seconds, I said. But that breakdown lasted almost an hour. Kellen was home that day. He must have filmed it. Opal's expression hardened. They cut it, edited it down to the worst moments and submitted it as evidence you're unstable. Can they do that? They already did. She pulled out her legal pad, started writing. Thane's attorney is arguing you're emotionally unfit to manage marital assets or make sound financial decisions. The video is supposed to prove it. I felt sick. They'd taken my most vulnerable moment, grief over a pregnancy I'd barely had time to process, and turned it into ammunition. He's using my miscarriage against me, I said. Opal nodded. And framing it as general instability without mentioning the context. That's why the timestamp is wrong. They don't want the court knowing what actually caused this. The traffic noise from the street below filtered through the window. Opal's leather chair creaked as she leaned forward. We fight this, she said. Video files have metadata. If this was edited, Vincent can prove it. 2 hours later, Vincent's name lit up Opal's phone screen. She put him on speaker immediately. Can you analyze video metadata the way you did with emails? Send me the file, Vincent said. I could hear his keyboard clicking in the background. If they edited it, I'll prove it. Opal forwarded the video Thane's attorney had submitted. Vincent went quiet while he worked. Got it, he said finally. Give me 20 minutes. I sat there staring at Opal's office ceiling while Vincent did whatever digital archaeologists do to extract truth from files. Opal made notes, building counter-arguments, preparing for court. My phone buzzed. Email from Vincent. Subject line, preliminary findings. Opal opened it on her laptop. A PDF report loaded pages of technical data I couldn't parse. But Opal could. She took a sharp breath. What? I asked. The video was heavily edited, she said, voice tight. Vincent found the original file metadata. The source video was 51 minutes long. They cut it down to 47 seconds. 51 minutes. They'd recorded almost an hour of my grief and selected the worst 47 seconds. How can he prove it? Opal pointed at the screen. Every time you edit a video, you create timestamp gaps in the metadata. The file they submitted has massive gaps, entire sections deleted. Vincent can show exactly where they made cuts and how much footage they removed. She scrolled down the report. Vincent had highlighted sections showing the edits: 12:47 p.m. to 12:51 p.m. content present, 12:51 p.m. to 1:38 p.m. deleted, 1:38 p.m. to 1:39 p.m. content present. They deleted 50 minutes and 13 seconds. This is prosecutable, Opal said, pen tapping rhythmically against her desk. Submitting falsified evidence to the court. Vincent can testify that the video was deliberately manipulated to misrepresent you. Evening light slanted through the blinds, turning everything golden and false. There's more, Opal said, scrolling to the next page. She zoomed in on a section of the metadata report. File properties, original file name. The file name sat there like a confession. K.Wolf _ kitchen _ cam3 _ 09 2319 _ 1847 .mp4. K. Wolf, I said. Kellen, he filmed it. Look at the rest, Opal said, tracing the text with her finger. Kitchen _ cam3. Cam3. Camera 3. The building's HVAC system shut down with a distant thunk, leaving sudden silence. If there's a camera 3, I said slowly, there are at least 2 others. Opal nodded. In the kitchen alone. And if they put 3 cameras in one room? She didn't finish. She didn't need to. I thought about every room in that house. The bedroom where I'd gotten dressed every morning, the bathroom, the living room where I'd watched TV, talked on the phone, existed in what I'd believed was privacy. How many cameras, how many hours of footage? How long had they been watching? This isn't just about the edited video anymore, Opal said quietly. This is evidence of systematic surveillance. Kellen Wolf recorded you without consent. Thane's attorney submitted doctored evidence to the court, and we now know there's an entire surveillance system you never consented to. She looked up from the screen, expression grave. Lyora, if there's a camera 3 in the kitchen? She didn't need to finish. I thought of every room in that house, every conversation, every moment I'd believed I was alone. I'd never been alone, not once in 5 years. We document everything, Opal said, closing her laptop on the surveillance footage. Every camera, every edited second, every violation. We build a case so airtight they can't breathe. September 24th. 2019. Opal spread 5 manila folders across her desk like a royal flush. 5 categories, she said. Digital forensics, email intrusions, financial theft, surveillance manipulation, timeline documentation. Each layer has to stand alone and reinforce the others. I looked at the folders, each one representing a different way Thane had dismantled my life. How far back does the timeline go? I asked. To the day you got that rejection email. Maybe earlier. We started building. The first folder was digital forensics. Vincent's device fingerprint analysis of the forged rejection email sat on top 47 pages of technical proof that Thane had composed the message on his laptop and sent it from our home IP address at 11:47 p.m. while I slept. Vincent flagged the SPF authentication failure, Opal said, highlighting a section. Yale's email server would never send a message without proper authentication. This proves it didn't come from them. She placed the report in a clear sleeve, labeled it Exhibit A. This is the foundation, she said. Everything else flows from this lie. The second folder was thicker. Email surveillance patterns. Vincent had pulled every access event from my account over 5 years and created a spreadsheet, 847 intrusions, each one timestamped, each one showing Thane's device signature. Opal had organized them by category: job applications, medical records, family correspondence, banking alerts. He read every rejection letter, she said, running her finger down the columns. Every medical bill, every birthday card from your mother. I stared at the spreadsheet, 9 years of my inbox cataloged like a research project, monitored, controlled, violated. 847 intrusions. I made myself say it out loud. The third folder documented the financial theft. Bank statements from April 2014 showing the $15,000 signing bonus deposit on the 15th, sitting untouched for 14 days, then withdrawn via cashier's check on the 29th one day, before Thane presented me with my engagement ring. The contractor he claimed to hire for home repairs doesn't exist, Opal said. I checked business registrations going back 10 years. No permits filed, no work orders. Just your money converted to a check and used to buy you a ring with your own stolen funds. She placed the bank statements next to a timeline showing the wedding was May 1st, 2014. The math was brutal in its clarity. He stole my signing bonus 3 days after I deposited it, I said. And made you wear it on your finger for 5 years, Opal added. The fourth folder was Vincent's surveillance video analysis. The metadata report sat next to screenshots from the edited submission, 47 seconds of my breakdown, versus the original file name showing 51 minutes. Opal had created a side-by-side comparison. Timestamp gaps highlighted in yellow where content had been deleted. The file name visible at the bottom. k.wolf_kitchen_cam3 _09 2319 _1 847.mp4. Vincent's analysis is bulletproof, Opal said. Any judge will see the manipulation, and this file name Camera 3 proves systematic recording. That means at least 2 others in one room, I said. Opal nodded grimly. The fifth folder was the timeline synthesis. Opal had spent hours creating a master chart connecting all the evidence, color-coded, cross-referenced, every piece of financial control mapped against every attempt I'd made at independence. The pattern was undeniable. Every time I'd applied for a job email, intrusions spiked. Every time I'd mentioned going back to school, financial access tightened. Every time I'd tried to grow, he'd adjusted the cage. This wasn't reactive, Opal said quietly. It was architectural. The timeline read like a blueprint for breaking a person without leaving bruises. September 25th, 2019. Late afternoon. The 46-page dossier sat on Opal's desk, printed and bound in a black cover. 5 sections. 43 exhibits. Every violation documented with timestamps, metadata, and forensic analysis. Opal flipped through it one final time, checking citations, verifying page numbers. She stopped on page 38, frowned. Wait, she said. Go back to the surveillance metadata log. I leaned over her shoulder. She was looking at Vincent's comprehensive device analysis, the section where he'd cross-referenced Thane's laptop signature against all accessed files. There, buried in a list of video file names, k.wolf_kitchen _cam3 _09 2319 _1847.mp4 k.wolf_kitchen _cam 1 _09 1219 _2 134.mp4 k.wolf_masterbed cam 1 _08 3119 _0647.mp4 Master bedroom, camera 1. August 31st, 2019, 6:47 a.m. My face went cold. Leora, Opal said carefully. Did you know there were cameras in your bedroom? I couldn't speak, couldn't think, just stared at that file name. Masterbed underscore cam1, the bedroom where I'd gotten dressed every morning, where I'd slept, where I'd believed stupidly naively that I had some scrap of privacy left. They filmed you in your own bedroom, Opal said. Cam1, which meant there could be more. Cam2, Cam3. How many cameras had Kellen installed? How much footage existed of me in spaces I'd thought were mine alone? Opal's pen hovered over the entry. If Kellen put a camera in your bedroom, we need to know what else was recorded, she said. She pulled out her phone. I'm calling Vincent. Tonight. She dialed while I stood there, still staring at that file name. The timestamp 6:47 a.m., early morning, when I would have been getting dressed for the day, moving through my room in what I'd believed was solitude. They'd watched it all. Vincent answered on the third ring. We found another camera reference, Opal said without preamble. Master bedroom. And I'm betting there are more. Can you pull a complete catalog of every video file Thane's device accessed in the last 2 years? I heard Vincent's keyboard clicking through the speaker. Give me 24 hours, he said. If there are more cameras, I'll find every file. Opal hung up and looked at me. The dossier sat between us, 46 pages of systematic control, 5 years of documented abuse, and now evidence that even my bedroom hadn't been safe. We're going to expose all of it, she said. Every camera, every violation, every second they thought they could watch you without consequence. I nodded. Couldn't form words yet. Just kept staring at that file name, imagining Kellen somewhere in that house reviewing footage, cataloging my private moments like some kind of sick research project. The dossier was complete. The evidence was airtight. But I'd just learned that everything I'd thought I knew about the surveillance was only the beginning. Vincent said he'd have the complete surveillance catalog by morning. We had nothing to do but wait and prepare for whatever cameras he'd find. September 26, 2019. My phone lit up with Viveka's name at exactly 8:47 a.m. I was sitting in Opal's office reviewing preliminary hearing notes when the call came through. Viveka Wolf, Thane's mother, the woman who'd spent 5 years treating me like household staff. I looked at Opal. She saw the name on my screen and held up one hand. Answer it, she said. Let me set up the recorder first. She moved quickly to her conference phone system, pressed a button, nodded at me. Red light blinking, recording active. I answered, Viveka, it's early. Leora, her voice was sharp-clipped, no pleasantries. You need to stop this circus before it goes any further. I put the phone on speaker so Opal could hear clearly. She was already writing notes on her legal pad. Stop what exactly? I asked. This divorce, these accusations, you're destroying a family over a misunderstanding. Thane made a mistake, fine, but you're tearing apart everything we've built. You're embarrassing everyone. I almost laughed. What accusations? The forged email, the surveillance, the theft. You're being dramatic, Viveka snapped. Family disagreements don't require lawyers and courtrooms. This is between you and Thane. Opal's pen moved steadily across the page. She mouthed, keep her talking. Between me and Thane, I repeated. Like how it was between me and the job I never got because he forged my rejection. Viveka's tone shifted, became rehearsed. I recognized it immediately, the same script she'd used at the party when I'd confronted them. The house needed you more than some job ever could, she said. We're family. Family takes care of each other. A career in New York would have pulled you away from what really mattered. I closed my eyes. Those exact words. The same phrasing Kellen had used. The same justification from the party. You really think I wouldn't have survived Yale? I asked. Thane protected you from career stress you weren't built for, Viveka continued. You should be grateful he saw what you needed better than you did. Opal's hand reached for the phone. I gave it to her. This is Opal Griffin, she said, voice shifting to cold professional precision. Mrs. Bailey's legal counsel. This call is being recorded. Are you aware of that, Ms. Wolf? Silence on the other end. Then I'm speaking to my daughter-in-law about family matters. You're attempting to pressure my client into withdrawing her divorce petition, Opal said. That's witness intimidation. Please continue if you'd like this recording submitted to the court. I expected Viveka to hang up. Instead, she kept going. Leora's always been dramatic, Viveka said. She's exaggerating everything, making mountains out of misunderstandings. This is exactly why Thane had to make decisions for her. She can't see clearly when she's emotional. Opal wrote faster. I watched her underline something twice. Ms. Wolf, Opal said carefully. Are you saying your son made decisions on Mrs. Bailey's behalf without her consent? I'm saying family looks out for each other, Viveka replied. Thane learned from his grandmother's mistakes chasing ambition over family destroys everyone. His grandmother put career first and it broke their family. Thane wasn't going to let history repeat itself. So the Wolf family believes women shouldn't pursue careers? Opal asked. You can't threaten someone while their lawyer is on the line and expect it to disappear. I believe family comes first, Viveka said. Her voice was hardening. And if Leora continues this attack on my son, the family will respond accordingly. Respond how? Opal asked. Viveka's pause was deliberate, calculated. If you push this, Leora will walk away with nothing, she said. No house, no car, no claim to marital assets. We have resources. We have attorneys who make yours look like children. And Kellen has connections throughout Lincoln, business connections, legal connections, people who owe the Wolf family favors. Is that a threat, Ms. Wolf? Opal asked. It's a reality check, Viveka replied. Drop this case, come home. We can pretend this never happened. But if you force us into a courtroom, you'll regret it. Opal wrote one word in capital letters: intimidation. Thank you for clarifying your position, Opal said. This recording will be submitted to the court as evidence of witness coercion and threats against my client's financial security. Have a good day, Ms. Wolf. She ended the call. The office was suddenly very quiet. The red recording light still blinked. Opal stopped the recording, saved the file, labeled it with timestamp and date. She just gave us conspiracy and witness intimidation, Opal said. 11 minutes, 4 explicit threats. This becomes Exhibit F. She pulled up the dossier on her computer, created a new section, began typing notes. Do they not realize they're making our case for us? I asked. Opal shook her head. They think they're untouchable. That's what happens when you control someone for 5 years without consequences. You forget other people have power too. She highlighted 4 sections of the call transcript. 1. Viveka admits Thane made decisions for Leora without consent. 2. Viveka states women pursuing careers destroys families. 3. Viveka threatens Leora will walk away with nothing. 4. Viveka mentions Kellen's connections to intimidate. This is prosecutable, Opal said. Family conspiracy, coordinated coercion, explicit threats tied to legal proceedings. She saved the file to the evidence folder, added it to the dossier index. There was a knock at the door. Opal's assistant, a young woman named Sarah, who usually waited to be called, opened it without waiting. Sorry to interrupt, Sarah said, slightly breathless, but the court just called. They moved up your preliminary hearing. She handed Opal a notice. Opal read it, looked up at me. When? I asked. Tomorrow, Opal said. They moved it to tomorrow. Sarah left. The notice sat on Opal's desk between us. One day. We had one day to finalize everything. Prepare arguments and walk into a courtroom where I'd face Thane for the first time since the party. With 46 pages of evidence, 11 minutes of recorded threats, and proof that the Wolf family had spent 5 years building a cage they truly believed I'd never escape. The video screen cast a blue glow across Opal's office. She'd spent the morning preparing for this, printing documents, testing the connection to Yale, making sure we had everything recorded. 2 minutes, she said, checking her watch. I smoothed my blazer, tried to steady my breathing. Montague Kirkland, the name from my application file. The recruiter Thane claimed never existed. In 2 minutes, I'd finally hear the truth about what happened in April 2010. The screen flickered to life. A man in his early 60s appeared, silver hair, neatly combed, wire-rimmed glasses framing thoughtful eyes. Medical journals lined the shelves behind him. Ms. Bailey, he said, his voice carrying warmth despite the digital distance. I've thought about you often over the years. Opal handled the introductions, explained the purpose of our call. Montague listened with the patient attention of someone who'd spent decades counseling anxious students. I remember your application file very clearly, he began. Exceptional academics, a compelling statement about addressing health disparities in underserved communities. You were exactly the caliber of candidate Yale wanted. Then why was I rejected? The question came out sharper than I'd intended. You weren't, Montague said. We sent you a conditional acceptance letter on April 12, 2013, pending your interview. You performed beautifully. On April 19th, I personally called your mobile number to discuss financial aid packages and orientation details. My chest tightened. I never received that call. I know, he said quietly, because someone else answered your phone. The words hung in the air between us. Opal leaned forward, her lawyer instincts engaged. Can you describe exactly what happened during that call, Mr. Kirkland? A man answered, Montague said. He identified himself as your husband said you were in the shower. I explained who I was calling from, asked him to have you return the call. He assured me he'd pass along the message. Did he give you a name? Opal asked. He did, Thane Wolfe. How many times can your world shatter before there's nothing left to break? I'd suspected. Vincent's forensic report had pointed to this, but hearing it confirmed by someone who'd been there, who'd spoken to Thane directly, it made everything real in a way evidence logs and email headers never could. What happened next? I managed to ask. I waited 3 days for your return call, Montague continued. When I didn't hear from you, I tried your number again, the same man answered. This time he told me you'd decided to pursue other opportunities, that you appreciated our offer, but wouldn't be attending Yale. I never said that, I whispered. I never knew. I suspected as much, Montague said. Your file suggested someone deeply committed to medical training. It seemed unusual you'd walk away without any discussion, but students change their minds and I had no reason to doubt your husband's relay. I noted the declination in your file and moved on. Opal was typing furiously on her legal pad. Mr. Kirkland, do you have any documentation of these calls? For the first time since appearing on screen, Montague smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. Ms. Griffin, I've been recruiting for Yale Medical School for 32 years. I keep meticulous records of all candidate communications. Call logs, notes, follow-up attempts, everything. He lifted a manila folder into the camera's view. I pulled Ms. Bailey's file yesterday after your office contacted us. The documentation is quite comprehensive. My pulse hammered in my ears. This was it. Proof that Thane hadn't just intercepted emails, he'd actively impersonated me, turned away opportunities while I remained completely unaware. Before Montague opened that folder on his screen, I want to ask you something. If you've ever had someone lie to your face about something they thought you'd never be able to prove, drop a comment. I need to know I'm not alone in this. We're about to see proof Thane orchestrated everything from the start. Back to the call. Montague opened the folder, began reading from his notes. April 19th, 2013, 2:17 p.m. Eastern. Called candidate Bailey Mobile ending in 4392. Male voice answered, identified as spouse Thane Wolfe. Message left regarding acceptance and financial aid timeline. Opal was already cross-referencing her own timeline. That's the same day the forged rejection email was sent from the fake Yale server. He answered your call, told you Leora was declining, then sent her a fake rejection to cover his tracks. April 22nd, 2013. Montague continued. 3:45 p.m. Eastern. Second attempt to reach candidate. Same individual answered, stated candidate pursuing other opportunities. Call duration 4 minutes 12 seconds. In that conversation, Mr. Wolfe specifically mentioned you decided to focus on your upcoming wedding and relocating with your fiancé, the company Thane worked for. The job offer he'd been so excited about, the one that required relocating to Connecticut, away from New Haven, away from Yale. It had never been about the job. It had been about preventing me from going to medical school. I have call records from my office line, Montague was saying. Timestamps, duration, even the callback number which I verified at the time matched your application materials. Everything is documented. Opal looked at me. This is admissible. Third-party testimony from a credible institutional source supported by contemporaneous records. Leora, this is exactly what we need. But I was barely hearing her. 9 years. For 9 years, I'd believed Yale rejected me, that I wasn't good enough, that my dream of becoming a doctor ended because I didn't measure up. And the entire time Thane knew. He'd orchestrated it, destroyed my future with 2 phone calls and a forged email. Ms. Bailey, Montague said gently, I realize this is difficult, but I want you to know your acceptance to Yale didn't expire in my mind. What happened to you was a profound injustice. Thank you, I said, my voice barely steady. This means more than you know. There's one more thing, he said, and his expression shifted to something almost hopeful. Yale is launching a new patient advocacy initiative next spring. We're looking for people with strong analytical skills and a passion for healthcare access, people who understand how systems can fail patients. If you're interested, I'd like to recommend you for the program coordinator position. The screen went dark as the call ended, but I couldn't move. Montague Kirkland had just handed me proof of Thane's deception, and a door to the future I'd lost all in the same conversation. Opal's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression changed instantly. Lyora, she said quietly. Thane's lawyer just filed a restraining order. He's claiming you've been harassing him. The restraining order was laughable, Thane claiming harassment when he'd spent a decade intercepting my life. Opal dismissed it with a single call to the judge's clerk, pointing out I hadn't contacted him once since leaving. By dawn, it was dead. Vincent's email arrived at 6:42 a.m. with the subject line, "You need to see what else I found in I. Lancaster." I was already at Opal's office running on coffee and spite. She pulled up Vincent's attachment and we both leaned toward the screen. The I. Lancaster account, Vincent had written, contains more than intercepted emails to Leora. There's a separate folder labeled P_personal. Contents attached. Opal clicked it open. The folder held 17 emails spanning 8 months, none of them mine. Why would Priya's emails be in the same account Thane used to spy on you? Opal asked. Maybe he was monitoring her too, I said. Or she used his email for something she wanted hidden. The first message was dated January 14, 2019, sent to Chen and Associates, a Chicago family law firm. The subject line read, Inquiry Re-Asset Division Timelines. Opal opened it. We read in silence. Dear Attorney Chen, I'm writing to inquire about legal timelines for asset division in marriages under 2 years in Illinois. Specifically, at what point do retirement accounts and business holdings become marital property? I appreciate your discretion. Regards, Priya Lancaster. The timestamp burned into my vision. January 2019, 8 months before Thane filed for divorce from me. January 2019, Opal said slowly. That's 8 months ago before Thane even filed for divorce from you. She was researching divorce law while playing the girlfriend, I said. Keep reading. The second email was to a different firm, Hartwell and Price, dated February 3, 2019. This one was more specific. Attorney Hartwell, following up on our phone consultation. You mentioned Illinois law treats marriages differently after 24 months. Can you confirm, do retirement accounts and business assets become marital property at the 2-year mark? If my spouse has pension holdings from prior employment and projected inheritance, would those be divisible after 24 months of marriage? Thank you for your guidance. P. Lancaster. The attorney's response was buried below. Ms. Lancaster. Yes, 24 months is a key threshold in Illinois. Retirement accounts typically vest as marital property. Inheritance remains separate unless commingled, but other business assets acquired during marriage are divisible. Happy to discuss strategy. Best J. Hartwell. 24 months, Opal said. She had a timeline. She was planning to marry him and divorce him exactly when assets vested, just like he planned your whole life. The recognition hit like ice water. Thane spent 10 years controlling every door that opened for me, every opportunity that crossed my path. And now Priya was mapping out his next 24 months with the same cold precision. The third email made my hands shake. Dated March 19, 2019, sent to Greenberg Legal Group. Mr. Greenberg, I'm conducting financial due diligence on a potential spouse. Age 33, senior executive at Drummond Media, annual income approximately $180,000. Pension value from previous employment at Wolf Steelworks estimated $400,000. Projected inheritance from family trust, brother Kellen Wolf. Sole heir approximately $2.3 million within 10 years. Questions. How do I maximize my claim to these assets in a short-term marriage? What documentation should I secure before marriage? What actions during marriage strengthen my position? Confidential consultation requested. Priya Lancaster. Thane built me a cage. Priya was building him a noose. She researched his net worth down to Kellen's inheritance projection. Opal said, her voice tight with something between horror and admiration. This wasn't romance, I said, it was reconnaissance. Thane has no idea. The attorney's response outlined strategy document, all shared expenses, contribute minimally to joint accounts, maintain separate property records, photograph valuables, secure copies of financial statements, a blueprint for surgical asset extraction. Priya had followed every instruction. The email trail showed her requesting Thane's pay stubs for the mortgage application, asking about his 401k for our future planning, inquiring about Kellen's health because family matters. She was treating marriage like a business acquisition. Opal pulled up her timeline spreadsheet, started cross-referencing dates. Priya started researching divorce 8 months ago before Thane's separation from you. She planned her exit before her entrance. Every step mirrors Thane's decade-long con, I said, just compressed into 24 months. He spent 10 years controlling you, Opal said. She's giving him 2. And he doesn't see it coming. The symmetry was almost beautiful. Thane destroyed my future to maintain control over his present. He needed me small, manageable, dependent. Yale would have given me independence, so he killed it. The job offers the friendships, the bank account, everything that might let me leave. And now Priya was doing the same thing to him, just faster, more efficient. She'd studied his assets the way he'd studied my email account. She'd planned her timeline the way he'd planned mine. I sat back in my chair, the weight of 9 years starting to lift. I'd spent the last month building a case, compiling evidence, preparing to fight Thane for every dollar he'd stolen from my future. The signing bonus, the opportunities, the years of lost income. But watching Priya's plan unfold in these cold, calculated emails, I realized something. I don't need to win everything, I said. I just need what's mine. Opal looked at me, meaning, let Priya have the rest. She's earned it. You're letting her destroy him for you. The question hung in the air. Or was I just recognizing that Thane's destruction was already in motion, set by his own hand when he chose a woman who saw him as a mark instead of a partner? He took 10 years from me. Priya could have his next too. Why should I save the man who stole my future from the woman who would steal his? We could expose this to his attorney, Opal said carefully. Show them Priya's emails, warn Thane what she's planning. I considered it for exactly 3 seconds. No, I said. Let him marry her. Let him trust her completely. Revenge by proxy, Opal said. A smile touched her lips. I like it. Justice doesn't always need a judge. Sometimes it just needs patience and the right person in the right place at the right time. Thane spent a decade making sure I was never in the right place. Now Priya was making sure he'd be exactly where she wanted him. Opal was archiving the Priya emails when her computer pinged with a calendar reminder, preliminary hearing. Today, 2 p.m. We'd been so focused on Priya's scheme we'd lost track of time. We had 4 hours to prepare. The preliminary hearing had been brief, procedural. The judge set a trial date and dismissed us. Now 2 days later, we sat in a different conference room waiting for a different kind of confrontation. Murray Gallagher walked into the conference room like he owned it, his attorney trailing behind with a leather briefcase. The older man had silver hair, perfectly tailored suit, the quiet confidence of someone used to closing deals worth more than most people's lives. Ms. Bailey, I'm Murray Gallagher, he said, extending his hand. This is Douglas Mercer, our corporate counsel. Douglas Mercer looked to be in his early 50s, thin-framed glasses and sharp eyes that cataloged everything. He worked directly for Wolf Steelworks, handling contracts and legal exposure. He set the briefcase on the table with practiced precision. Mr. Gallagher, Opal said. Ms. Griffin representing Ms. Bailey. Murray took a seat across from us, folded his hands on the table. I understand this is difficult, but I believe we can resolve this efficiently. Mr. Gallagher, Opal said, my client isn't here for efficiency. His expression didn't change. Then let me be direct. I'm not here on Thane's behalf personally. I'm here because your dispute with him is creating complications for the company. What kind of complications? I asked. Murray glanced at Douglas, who opened the briefcase and pulled out a folder. We're finalizing a $40 million contract with Brennan Industries, Murray said. They're a family-owned firm with conservative values and a very traditional client base. They value stability, discretion, reputation. I saw where this was going. And Thane's personal issues are becoming a corporate liability. Precisely, Murray said. Our clients don't want their suppliers embroiled in public scandals involving surveillance, forged documents, and extramarital affairs. It reflects poorly on our judgment. So you're here to protect the company, not him? Opal said. I'm here to protect everyone, Murray said smoothly, including you, Ms. Bailey. Prolonged litigation serves no one's interests. Douglas slid a document across the table. The header read Confidentiality Agreement and Mutual Release. $50,000, Douglas said, in exchange for confidentiality regarding Mr. Wolf's employment position and conduct at Wolf Steel Works and affiliated companies. I stared at the paper. The divorce proceeds quietly, Murray continued. You receive a settlement. We avoid public spectacle. Everyone moves forward. You want to pay me to be quiet? I said. We want to compensate you for discretion, Murray corrected. There's a difference. Opal was already scanning the document, her lawyer eyes catching every clause. I watched her expression tighten. Does this NDA prevent me from discussing the forged Yale email? I asked. Douglas adjusted his glasses. It covers all conduct during the marriage and related to the divorce proceedings. So yes, I said, everything stays buried. It protects your privacy as much as his. Murray said, do you really want your personal correspondence? Your surveillance footage? Your medical school rejection? Do you want all of that in public record? The question was meant to sound reasonable. It wasn't. 5 years of silence, not one more day. I was silent for 5 years while he destroyed my future, I said, pushing the document back across the table. I won't take money to stay quiet now, not for 50,000, not for any amount. Murray's expression finally shifted. Not much, just a tightening around the eyes. Ms. Bailey, I understand you're angry, but you don't understand, I interrupted. You understand $40 million contracts and corporate liability. You don't understand what it's like to discover your entire life was someone else's construction. Then help me understand what would satisfy you, Murray said. The truth, I said. In court on record where it can't be erased. Douglas glanced at Murray. Some silent communication passed between them. We can revise the consideration, Douglas said carefully. 75,000 perhaps? We're prepared to go higher if the terms are acceptable, Murray added. Opal was watching me, waiting to see if I'd waver. I didn't. The number doesn't matter, I said. I'm not signing. I'd spent 5 years living in a reality Thane manufactured. He'd built it with forged emails, intercepted calls, hidden cameras, stolen money. Every number in my bank account, every door that closed, every opportunity that vanished, all of it constructed to keep me contained. Murray was trying to buy my silence like Thane bought my future with numbers on paper with promises that sounded reasonable until you realized they were cages. Murray closed his folder. His expression hardened into something less friendly, more calculating. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Ms. Bailey, he said quietly. When powerful people become uncomfortable, they don't sit idle, they take action. Is that a threat? Opal asked. It's a reality, Murray said. I came here offering a fair resolution. You should reconsider while the offer stands. He stood. Douglas gathered the unsigned documents, returned them to the briefcase. I'll take my chances, Mr. Gallagher, I said. He paused at the door, looked back at me with something that might have been respect or might have been calculation. I hope you understand what you're choosing, he said. I do, I said. For the first time in a long time, I'm choosing. They left. The conference room felt colder without them, the silence heavier. Opal's pen tapped against her legal pad, the only sound in the room. You just turned down what might have been 6 figures, she said finally. I know. Good, she said. Because they wouldn't have offered it if they weren't terrified of what you know. She was right. Murray hadn't come to negotiate, he'd come to contain. The $40 million contract was real. The threat to the company was real. But underneath it all was something simpler. Powerful men protecting other powerful men, closing ranks against anyone who threatened to expose what they'd rather keep hidden. I'd been hidden long enough. 10 minutes after Murray left, Opal's paralegal knocked with a message. Someone had filed a motion to seal all divorce records and bar media access. The filing came from a law firm I'd never heard of. Opal was already calling the law firm that filed the sealing motion when my phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen. My mother's voice on the phone was so quiet I almost didn't recognize it. Leora, I need to tell you something I should have said 5 years ago. I stepped into Opal's private office, closed the door. Mom, what is it? I've been watching what's happening with your case, she said. Her voice trembled. I can't stay silent anymore. I should have said something years ago. I told myself it wasn't my business, that I'd just be causing trouble. Mom, what are you talking about? She took a shaky breath. I saved things, evidence. I didn't know what else to do with it, so I just kept it, in case you ever needed it. My hand tightened on the phone. What kind of evidence? 3 years ago, she began. I got a text from Thane. It was meant for someone else for Priya. He'd mixed up the contacts in his phone. The room tilted slightly. What did it say? I asked. Can't tonight, Denise is visiting? Her voice cracked. He realized the mistake, immediately asked me to delete it, said it was about a work meeting. But I knew. I took a screenshot before I gave the phone back. 3 years ago, I said slowly. They were together 3 years ago. At least, Mom said. Maybe longer. I didn't confront him. I was scared. I thought maybe I was reading too much into it, maybe it was innocent. But something told me to save it. I opened Opal's door, gestured frantically. She ended her call and came over. Mom, I'm putting you on speaker. My attorney is here. Mrs. Bailey, this is Opal Griffin Leora's attorney. Opal said, all business. Can you send us these files? There's more than the text, Mom said. There's a photo from the 2016 company picnic. Thane and Priya are in the background. His hand is on her lower back. They're standing close, the way couples stand. That's 2 years before they claimed to meet, Opal said sharply. What else do you have? Mom hesitated. The silence stretched long enough that I thought we'd lost the connection. Mom. There's an audio file, she said finally. 2 years ago, I was at your house, Thane's house. I'd put my phone on the kitchen counter and I thought I'd turned it off, but I'd accidentally started a voice memo instead. Opal leaned closer to my phone. What's on the recording? They were in the next room. I heard them talking. I didn't realize my phone was recording until later that night. And when I listened, her voice broke. He said Leora isn't going anywhere, she has no choice. The words hit like a physical blow. And Priya, I managed to ask. She laughed, Mom whispered. She said you've got her trained well. My mother had known for years, and she'd kept receipts. The office air felt too thin. Opal's hand found my shoulder, steadying. Mrs. Bailey, Opal said carefully. That audio file is critical evidence. Do you still have the original? I've never deleted anything, Mom said. I kept it all. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was overreacting, but I couldn't make myself delete it. And then when you finally left him, Leora, I thought maybe you didn't need my evidence. You seemed so sure, so strong. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. The question came out gentler than I expected. I was scared, she said, crying now. I didn't want to be the one who broke up your marriage. I didn't want you to be angry that I'd waited. I didn't want to cause family conflict. I kept thinking if you ever needed proof I had it. And now you do. Mom, I said you didn't break anything. He did. Opal was already typing on her computer. Mrs. Bailey, I'm sending you a secure email address. Send everything to that address. The original files exactly as they are. Don't edit, don't compress. Can you do that right now? Yes, Mom said. Give me 5 minutes. We waited. Opal paced. I sat very still, trying to process what my mother had just handed me. 5 years of silence, 5 years of carefully hoarded proof that my life was someone else's experiment. Opal's computer chimed. She opened the email, started downloading files. Screenshot of text message 2016. Opal narrated. Photo file from company picnic, metadata intact. Audio file 47 seconds. She clicked through each one, checking timestamps, verifying authenticity. Mrs. Bailey, you just changed the entire case. The metadata is clean, Mom asked. Perfect, Opal confirmed. Timestamps, location, data file, creation dates, everything is admissible. These are exactly what we need. I took the phone off speaker, held it close. Mom, can you give us a minute? I need to talk to you alone. Opal nodded, stepped out of the office. I'm sorry I wasn't braver sooner, Mom said immediately. You were strong in the way you could be, I told her. You kept the truth safe. It was the kindest thing I could say, and I meant it. My mother had witnessed pieces of my imprisonment and done the only thing she knew, how she documented it. Not for drama, not for leverage, but because some part of her understood that truth matters, that evidence survives when memory fails. I love you, sweetheart, she said. I should have said that more. I should have said a lot of things more. You're saying them now, I said. That's what matters. We stayed on the phone for another minute, not talking, just breathing together across 800 miles. When we finally hung up, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. My mother had carried this weight in silence, and now she'd set it down. We'd both set it down. Opal returned to the office, expression unreadable. Leora, the audio file has Priya's voice clearly identifiable. We can subpoena her. She paused. Thane's attorney just requested an emergency motion hearing for Monday. We have 48 hours. The emergency hearing had bought us time. The judge denied Thane's motion to seal the records, and now we had 3 weeks until trial. Opal suggested we visit Nebraska to gather additional witness statements. Irene Upshaw opened her front door with a teacup in one hand and a flash drive in the other. I wasn't sure if I should call, she said, ushering us into her living room. But your mother said you needed help. The house smelled like chamomile and old books. Irene had prepared tea-arranged cookies on a plate and set her old camcorder on the coffee table next to a neatly labeled flash drive. Mrs. Upshaw, Opal said, settling onto the floral couch. Anything you have could be valuable. Irene's hands trembled slightly as she poured tea. I recorded your birthday party, the one from 2017. I barely remembered that party. Thane had insisted on inviting the whole neighborhood even though I'd wanted something small. I record things, Irene continued. Always have. Memories for the grandkids, you know. Neighborhood events, holiday gatherings, birthdays. She paused, looking at the camcorder. But this one, something felt wrong watching it back. Wrong how? Opal asked gently. I almost deleted it, Irene said, but I didn't. She'd been holding on to it for 2 years, some instinct telling her to preserve what she'd captured, even when she didn't understand why it mattered. Irene connected the camcorder to her television with practiced efficiency. The screen flickered to life, showing my backyard on a bright July afternoon. The timestamp read July 22nd, 2017. I watched myself move through the frame, younger, thinner, smiling, but with something hollow behind my eyes. Thane worked the grill, playing the perfect host. Neighbors mingled with paper plates and plastic cups. You looked so thin that year, Irene said quietly. I remember that party, I said. I remember feeling exhausted. Keep watching, Irene said. It's around minute 14. The camera panned across the yard, catching fragments of conversation, laughter, the ordinary rhythms of a neighborhood gathering. Then the frame settled on me, standing near the back fence alone despite the crowd. Viveka appeared from the left, approached with that practiced smile. The audio was surprisingly clear. Viveka's voice carried perfectly. You know this house needs you more than that job ever could. I watched my past self smile while they buried my future. My face on the screen fell for just a moment before the mask snapped back into place. Viveka patted my shoulder with false comfort and walked away, leaving me standing alone by the fence. There, Irene said. Did you hear that? Opal was already taking notes. This house needs you more than that job. Same exact phrasing from the phone call Vincent recovered. It's a script, I said. They all use the same script. Opal rewound the footage, played it again. Viveka's voice crystal clear, delivering the same coercive message that had echoed through 5 years of my life. Only now it was documented, time-stamped, admissible. There's more, Irene said. At 1647. She fast-forwarded. The timestamp clicked forward 1647. The camera had captured a different corner of the yard now. 2 women talking near the drink table. One of them was Priya. That's Priya, I said. In 2017, at my birthday party. Her voice came through, clearly speaking to a neighbor I vaguely recognized. She is just putting on drama. Thane deals with it constantly. The neighbor nodded sympathetically, and Priya continued talking, gesturing dismissively. In the background of the frame, I was visible alone again, holding a plate I wasn't eating from. She's dismissing you to a stranger while standing in your backyard, Opal said. The audacity is almost impressive, I murmured. But the real weight of it settled deeper. Priya at my birthday party in 2017. Comfortable enough to gossip about me to my neighbors, familiar enough with Thane's narrative to repeat his lines. This was 2 years before they claimed their relationship began. Yet here she was already embedded in my life, already working to undermine me. Opal paused the video on Priya's face. Mrs. Upshaw, can you tell me about this camera's specifications? Oh, it's a good one, Irene said, brightening slightly. I bought it for the grandkids' recitals. Good sound quality matters when you're recording performances. High definition, Opal asked. Yes, and it has a directional microphone. Picks up conversation very clearly. Opal examined the technical display on the screen. This camera has better audio than most security systems. The timestamp metadata is intact, Opal asked. Everything's original, Irene confirmed. I transferred it to the flash drive, but the files are untouched. Mrs. Upshaw, this is admissible and damning. Irene twisted her hands in her lap, looking between Opal and me. Would you be willing to testify in court? Opal asked. To authenticate the recording, confirm when and where you filmed it. Irene's expression shifted to uncertainty. I'm 74. Courtrooms are for young people. I reached across and took her hand. Her skin was paper-thin warm. I understand if you can't, I said. You've already helped more than you know. Irene looked at the television screen, frozen on the image of me standing alone at my own birthday party, while Priya poisoned the narrative in the background. 74 years old and braver than I'd been at 28. I'll do it, Irene said firmly. Someone needs to tell the truth. Opal pulled out her laptop, began the process of copying the video file with chain of custody documentation. Irene signed the paperwork with a steady hand, her earlier nervousness replaced by quiet resolve. As Opal worked, Irene stood and disappeared into her back bedroom. I heard her moving things around, the sound of cardboard scraping against wood. I run the neighborhood association, Irene said almost apologetically. Have for 12 years. Every block party, every community event, every holiday gathering, I record everything for the association newsletter and the community archive. 37 families on this street. I have footage of all of them. She disappeared into her back bedroom. She returned carrying a box labeled in neat handwriting, Neighborhood Events 2012 to 2018. If you need more, she said, setting it on the coffee table. There are 11 other videos in here. We spent 7 days reviewing Irene's videos. Each one documented the same patterns. Isolation control, Priya's presence stretching back to 2014. 11 recordings spanning 6 years each one, capturing moments I'd forgotten or never fully understood. Now we sat in a courtroom ready to use it. Judge Caldwell entered the courtroom at exactly 10 a.m., black robes swishing, and everyone rose. She was in her late 50s, gray hair pulled into a severe bun, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. Judge Marion Caldwell had presided over the district court for 15 years, with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings and zero tolerance for attorney games. Be seated, she said, taking the bench. Her voice carried authority without volume. We're here on preliminary motions in Bailey v. Wolf. Counsel, proceed. I sat next to Opal at the plaintiff's table, the polished wood cool under my palms. Across the aisle, Thane avoided my eyes, his attorney shuffling papers beside him. The courtroom was nearly empty, just a clerk, a court reporter, and the weight of everything that had led us here. Your Honor, we're addressing asset preservation and evidence admissibility, Opal said, her voice steady. Judge Caldwell made a note on her legal pad. Defense, you requested this hearing. Begin. Thane's attorney stood, a man in his 40s with thinning hair and an expensive suit. Your Honor, we're presenting evidence that raises serious concerns about Mrs. Wolf's emotional state and her fitness to manage significant marital assets. He approached the clerk's desk with a flash drive, moving with practiced courtroom confidence. We have video documentation showing Mrs. Wolf's emotional volatility during the marriage. This footage was preserved by family members concerned for her welfare. The courtroom monitor flickered to life. I recognized my kitchen immediately, the white cabinets, the granite countertops Thane had insisted on installing. The timestamp appeared in the corner kitchen _cam 3, the same surveillance camera Vincent had identified. I watched myself on screen, sitting at the kitchen table crying. My shoulders shook. My hands covered my face. 47 seconds of me falling apart, isolated and alone, captured without my knowledge, and now displayed in open court. This video shows concerning behavior. Thane's attorney continued, his tone sympathetic. My client has serious concerns about her mental state and financial judgment. The video ended. 47 seconds of humiliation played for a judge who would decide my future. Opal stood smoothly. Your Honor, may I respond to this submission? Go ahead, Ms. Griffin. We have forensic analysis of this video that the court needs to see before giving it any weight whatsoever. But Thane's attorney wasn't finished. Your Honor, before counsel responds, I want to emphasize that this video was recorded by family members genuinely concerned for Mrs. Wolf's welfare. We believe a psychological evaluation is warranted before she handles any significant assets. My hands clenched under the table. The implication was clear: I was unstable, irrational, incapable. The family documented concerning behavior for her own protection, he added. Objection, Your Honor, Opal said calmly. Counsel is testifying rather than presenting authenticated evidence. Sustained, Judge Caldwell said, looking at Thane's attorney with thinly veiled impatience. Stick to what you can prove, counselor. Opal approached the bench with a thick folder, her movements deliberate. Your Honor, this video was manipulated. We have forensic proof from a certified digital forensics expert. She handed Judge Caldwell Vincent Holloway's 14-page metadata report, each page flagged with colored tabs. Our expert analyzed the file structure and metadata. The original recording was 51 minutes and 13 seconds long. Someone edited it down to 47 seconds, removing more than 50 minutes of context. 50 minutes of my breakdown. They kept 50 minutes. Judge Caldwell looked up from the report, her expression shifting from neutral to skeptical. This indicates significant editing. Counsel, did you verify the authenticity of this video before submission? Thane's attorney shifted his weight, suddenly less confident. We received the video from our client in good faith, Your Honor. Good faith doesn't excuse due diligence, Judge Caldwell said sharply. Continue, Ms. Griffin. Opal stepped closer to the bench. The metadata shows the original file name, k.wolf_kitchen_cam3. That's not a concerned family member recording on a phone. That's professional surveillance equipment with systematic file naming. And the timestamp gaps in the metadata prove 50 minutes and 13 seconds were deliberately deleted. Judge Caldwell read through the report, her expression hardening with each page. She flipped to the technical analysis section, studied the timeline charts. This report is thorough, she said finally. The editing is clearly documented, the timestamps are verifiable. She looked directly at Thane's attorney. Do you have the unedited version of this video? Not at this time, Your Honor. Then you submitted edited surveillance footage without disclosing the editing to this court. Judge Caldwell said, her tone cold. Explain why I shouldn't sanction you right now. Silence filled the courtroom. The court reporter's fingers paused over the keys. Thane's attorney had no answer. Across the aisle, Thane's face had gone pale, his jaw tight. Your Honor, his attorney tried, we can obtain. You should have obtained it before presenting edited evidence to mislead this court, Judge Caldwell interrupted. Ms. Griffin, what are you requesting? Asset preservation pending full disclosure, Opal said clearly, and immediate production of all unedited surveillance footage. Judge Caldwell nodded slowly. I'm going to rule from the bench. She looked directly at Thane's attorney, and the weight of her 15 years on the bench showed in her expression. Defense will produce the full unedited video within 48 hours or face sanctions for spoliation of evidence. She turned to the clerk. I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all marital assets pending full disclosure. The residents, all bank accounts, retirement accounts, pension holdings, everything. No withdrawals, no transfers, no encumbrances of any kind. The gavel came down and everything Thane controlled froze. Ms. Griffin, prepare a comprehensive asset inventory for the next hearing scheduled for. She consulted her calendar, November 5th. Court adjourned. The gavel struck again, the sound echoing in the small courtroom. Everyone stood as Judge Caldwell left the bench. Opal gathered her papers, expression professionally neutral, but I saw the satisfaction in her eyes when she glanced at me. That went well, she murmured. We walked into the hallway, my legs steadier than they'd been in weeks. Thane stood 20 feet away with Kellen, who was speaking rapidly, gesturing sharply. Thane's face had gone white, his usual composure completely shattered. When Kellen saw me, his expression shifted to something I'd never seen before, fear. Kellen's fear had been real. 3 days later, we understood why. Opal's text came through at 9:47 a.m. Priya just filed an HR complaint against Thane, attached every message between them. I stared at the screen in Opal's office, trying to process what I was reading. She's trying to flip the narrative, Opal said, scrolling through the complaint summary Murray had forwarded. Paint herself as the victim, claim Thane abused his power and forced her compliance. 2 years of messages, I said. That's a lot of evidence. Evidence that could cut both ways, Opal said. We didn't have to wait long. By mid-afternoon, Murray called Opal directly. Ms. Griffin, you should see these messages, Murray said, his voice tight. They're illuminating. Opal put him on speaker. Go ahead, Mr. Gallagher. Priya submitted 247 messages spanning March 2017 through September 2019. She claims they show coercion. Our legal team disagrees. They show active conspiracy. Example, Opal asked. June 2018. Priya writes, Remanaging the wife situation. Have you considered restricting her access to joint accounts makes the dependency clearer? Thane responds, already done. Good thinking. I felt my breath catch. Priya hadn't just been complicit, she'd been strategic. There's more, Murray continued. Much more. Priya discusses managing the wife situation, like a project timeline, milestones, benchmarks, success metrics. She documented her own conspiracy, Opal said. Extensively, Murray confirmed. My legal team is forwarding everything to you within the hour. The files arrived at 3:15 p.m. Opal and I read in silence, the weight of each message settling like stones. One thread from March 2018 stopped me cold. The subject line read, Draft, L rejection language. Priya had written, too harsh. Try softer language so she doesn't question it. Maybe we appreciated your interest instead of your application was unsuccessful. Thane had responded, perfect. Softer is better. She needs to believe it was close. Priya had replied, exactly. Keep her hoping for next time that will never come. She helped him forge the Yale email. I said, my voice barely above a whisper. And she just handed us the evidence, Opal said. Priya built the gallows and handed Thane the rope. Then she climbed up next to him. Murray called again at 6:45 p.m. I terminated them both this afternoon, he said without preamble. Security escorted them out at 4:30. The messages constitute fraud, conspiracy, and deliberate harm to company interests. The contract, Opal asked. The client pulled it, Murray said. They found out about the HR investigation. They won't work with a company embroiled in documented fraud. $40 million gone. Mr. Gallagher, I appreciate you keeping us informed, Opal said. Ms. Griffin, I'm cooperating fully with your case. Thane destroyed his own career trying to destroy your clients. That reflects on my judgment in hiring him. I want it on record. The call ended. Opal and I sat in silence. Priya tried to save herself and destroyed them both, I said finally. Justice, Opal said, arrives from unexpected directions. November 8th, final trial day. I entered the Lincoln District Courthouse at 8:45 a.m. carrying 3 binders of evidence. Opal walked beside me, her briefcase heavy with documentation. Thane sat alone at the defense table. His attorney looked exhausted, defeated before we'd even begun. No Viveka, no Kellen. Then Lester Wolfe walked into the courtroom. Walked. No cane, no limp, no visible struggle. Opal saw it too. She leaned toward me. Dad just walked in. No cane. Noted, I murmured. Judge Caldwell entered at precisely 9 a.m. Be seated. Final arguments in Bailey versus Wolfe. Ms. Griffin, proceed. Opal stood, presented our case with surgical precision. The forged email, the surveillance, the financial control, Priya's messages documenting active conspiracy, Denise's audio recording, Vincent's forensic analysis. At 10:30 a.m. Irene Upshaw took the stand. She wore a navy dress, her white hair in its usual neat bun. 74 years old and steady as stone. Mrs. Upshaw, please tell the court about the video you recorded, Opal said. I recorded a birthday party in July 2017, Irene said, her voice clear. 23 minutes of footage. I kept it because something felt wrong watching it back. Can you identify the voices on the recording? Yes, I've known the Wolfe family 15 years. That's Vivica Wolfe saying this house needs you more than that job. Thane's attorney tried to shake her on cross-examination. Mrs. Upshaw, you're certain you can identify a voice from a 2-year-old recording? I'm certain, Irene said firmly. I've heard Vivica say similar things dozens of times. That's her voice. That's her message. The attorney sat down. Opal rested our case at 2:15 p.m. Thane's attorney presented his defense claims of marital discord, allegations of emotional instability. But he had nothing to counter the documents, the recordings, the systematic evidence of control. Judge Caldwell called the 30-minute recess. At 3:45 p.m., she returned to the bench. I've reviewed all submitted evidence, she began. The documentation is extensive, credible, and deeply concerning. She looked directly at Thane. The evidence of systematic deception and control is overwhelming. Mr. Wolfe forged correspondence, intercepted professional opportunities, installed surveillance equipment without consent, and conspired with a third party to suppress his wife's career advancement for 5 years. $87,500, the price of 5 stolen years. Divorce is granted, Judge Caldwell continued. Marital assets are divided 60% to Mrs. Bailey, 40% to Mr. Wolfe. Additionally, Mr. Wolf is ordered to pay compensation totaling $87,500 for suppressed professional opportunity and damages. She paused. This court finds the defendant engaged in fraud, coercion, and financial abuse. All surveillance evidence is deemed inadmissible in any future proceeding and is ordered destroyed. The gavel fell. The sound echoed at the quiet courtroom. Final, complete. Thane stood face blank and walked out without looking at me. Kellen waited in the hallway, but he walked past him too. For the first time in 10 years, I watched him leave and felt absolutely nothing. Feeling nothing became the new normal. I moved through the 12 days after the verdict in a kind of detached calm, signing paperwork, coordinating with Opal, waiting for settlement checks to clear. Opal called on a Tuesday morning with news she'd been collecting for 12 days. The Wolf family was imploding. "I've been tracking the aftermath," she said without preamble. "You should know what's happening." I sat in my temporary apartment looking out at Chicago traffic. "Is this about the settlement payment?" "It's about everything falling apart over there," Opal said. I poured coffee, settled into the chair by the window. "Tell me." "Thane lost his job at Drummond Media on October 25th, you know that. What you don't know is he can't find new employment. The termination for fraud and conspiracy follows him. Every background check surfaces the court case. And the settlement, he has to sell the house to cover it," Opal said. "The market appraisal came in at $230,000. After the mortgage, he'll barely clear enough to pay you and cover his legal fees. If the sale doesn't close fast, he's looking at bankruptcy." I listened to the numbers with surprising detachment. 230,000. The house Thane had insisted we buy, the one he'd used to trap me in Connecticut. "He can't pay without selling," I said. "Correct. And the buyer's inspection found issues. Foundation cracks, outdated electrical. He's negotiating down from an already low offer." I sipped my coffee. It tasted like any other Tuesday. "What about Priya?" I asked. "Separate nightmare," Opal said, and I heard papers rustling. Drummond Media is suing her for contract interference. They're claiming her conduct directly caused the client to withdraw the $40 million deal. They want damages. "Can they prove it?" "Her own HR complaint proved it," Opal said. "She documented everything. Her attorney fees are already past 6 figures. She's unemployable in pharmaceutical sales, the scandal attached to her name permanently. Priya had planned to divorce Thane in 24 months, walk away with his assets. Now she couldn't even afford her legal defense. She planned to take him for everything," I said. "Now she can't even afford groceries." "Justice," Opal said, "isn't always poetic, but sometimes it's mathematical." "What else?" "Viveka and Lester," Opal continued. "They're in their 60s now and they can't rely on Thane's unpaid labor anymore. They hired professional services, housekeeper, cook, errand runner." I set my coffee down. "How much?" $3,500 a month. $3,500, the price tag on 5 years of my life. "Say that number again," I said quietly. $3,500 per month, Opal repeated. "They're paying professionals what you did for free, and neither Viveka nor Lester can sustain that expense long-term on their retirement income." I did the math automatically. 3,500 times 12 months, 42,000 per year, times 5 years. $210,000, I said. "That's what my labor was worth." "And they told you the house needed you more than a career," Opal said. 210,000. I'd cooked their meals, cleaned their houses, managed their schedules, ran their errands, provided elder care. They'd valued my work at over $200,000 while simultaneously telling me I had no worth beyond service. The irony was mathematical, precise, undeniable. "They're struggling to afford their own dependents," I said. "They built a system that required your free labor," Opal said. "Now the system collapsed and they can't afford to replace you." "What about Kellen?" "His event planning business took a hit," Opal said. "Several clients canceled when the verdict went public. The Wolf name carries association now. He's working longer hours, taking smaller contracts, trying to rebuild his client base." Kellen, who'd stood beside Thane through everything, was now scrambling to maintain his own business in the aftermath. "The whole family," I said. "All of them." "All of them," Opal confirmed. Thane facing bankruptcy. Priya facing lawsuits. Viveka and Lester facing costs they can't sustain. Kellen facing reputation damage. It's comprehensive. When did revenge stop feeling like justice and start feeling like ash? I expected to feel triumphant. I'd won. The judge had ruled in my favor, the evidence had been overwhelming. The Wolf family was collapsing under the weight of their own choices. Everything I'd fought for had materialized exactly as it should. But sitting in my apartment listening to Opal recite the catalog of their destruction, I felt hollow. I thought hearing this would feel different, I said finally. Different how? Opal asked. I thought I'd feel satisfied, I just feel empty. Opal was quiet for a moment. Revenge provides evidence and justice. It doesn't provide healing. That comes from somewhere else. Where? Forward motion, Opal said. Building something instead of dismantling something. You spent months tearing down what they built. Now you have to build what's yours. She was right. The Wolf family's destruction was complete, comprehensive, and entirely their own doing. But it didn't fill the void where 10 years of my life used to be. It didn't give me back the career I'd lost, the medical school opportunity, the professional identity I'd never developed. It gave me justice, but justice wasn't the same as healing. The settlement should clear by the end of the month, Opal said. Your portion of the assets, the compensation, everything. You'll have enough to start over properly. Start over, I repeated, at 28. 28 isn't too late for anything, Opal said. It's earlier than most people get their freedom. We talked for a few more minutes about logistics, paperwork, final signatures. When she hung up, I sat with the silence. The Wolf family was imploding. I was free. The money was coming. My future was blank and terrifying, and mine. My phone buzzed with an email notification. I glanced at the screen. Montague Kirkland's name appeared in the subject line, Repatient Advocacy Position, Formal Offer. I opened the email, read the offer twice, then closed my laptop. Before I could decide about my future, I needed to reconcile with my past. I drove to Lincoln the next morning. My mother opened the door before I could knock, like she'd been waiting by the window. I made pot roast, she said, stepping aside to let me in. Your favorite. The house smelled like home garlic rosemary, the particular warmth of food made with intention. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed this until the scent hit me. You didn't have to do that, I said. I wanted to, Mom said. I've wanted to for a long time. We sat at her kitchen table, the same one I'd done homework at 20 years ago. The pot roast was perfect, tender, and rich. We ate in comfortable silence at first, then words started coming. Mom didn't make excuses. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just listened. I told her things I couldn't say during the marriage, the isolation, the surveillance cameras I'd discovered, the way Thane had trained me to doubt my own memory, the years of wondering if I was crazy for feeling trapped. I should have been braver for you, Mom said quietly. You were brave in the way you could be, I told her. You kept the evidence safe. When it mattered, you spoke up. I'm so proud of who you became despite everything, she said, tears in her eyes. You fought back. You won. We cried. We laughed. The distance that had stretched between us for 5 years closed over pot roast and honesty. After dinner, Mom disappeared into her bedroom. She returned with a white envelope. I want you to have this, she said. Inside was my college graduation photo from 2009, professionally framed. I was 23 in the picture, wearing my cap and gown, smiling with my whole face. Hopeful. Unbroken. Before Thane. I turned the frame over. On the back, in Mom's careful handwriting, "This girl is still in you. She never left. Mom." I kept this on my desk, Mom said. Every day for 10 years. When I couldn't say anything, when I was too scared to act, I looked at this picture and remembered who you were. I knew she was still there. My throat tightened. Mom, I can't. You were her before him, Mom said firmly. You'll be her after him. You already are. I held the frame, looking at the girl I'd been. Mom was right. That girl was still here. Older, scarred, wiser, but still here. We spent the evening talking about the future instead of the past. The conversation felt lighter possible. Have you looked at the job offer? Mom asked. I read it, I admitted. I haven't responded. Why not? I'm afraid to want it, I said. Afraid it'll get taken away again. Mom reached across and took my hand. Wanting things is how you know you're alive again. Hoping felt dangerous, but so did staying numb. I stayed the night in my old bedroom. The next morning, Mom made pancakes. We hugged goodbye in her driveway, and this time it didn't feel like an ending. December 10th, 9 days after my mother gave me permission to hope. I met Montague Kirkland at a cafe near Yale Medical School. The New York air was cold and sharp, different from Nebraska winter. Thank you for coming all this way, Montague said, standing to greet me. I needed to get out of Nebraska anyway, I said. Then let's talk about bringing you to New York permanently, he said. We sat. Montague ordered coffee for both of us, asked briefly about the divorce outcome, then transitioned smoothly to business. The patient advocacy program launches in March, he began. We need someone who can build systems from scratch, manage complex stakeholder relationships, and handle crisis communications. Someone who's proven they can stay strategic under pressure. And you think that's me? I asked. I know it is, Montague said. I watched you navigate a decade-long conspiracy, compile evidence, manage legal strategy, and win a case that should have buried you. Those are exactly the skills this position requires. He slid a folder across the table. Director of Strategic Marketing for the Patient Advocacy Program. $145,000 annually. Remote, first for the first 6 months, then New York office option if you want it. I stared at the number. 145,000. More than triple what I'd been making at the marketing firm before Thane made me quit. You're hiring me because of the divorce case, I asked carefully. I'm hiring you because you proved you can manage complex crises with precision and dignity, Montague said. The program will face resistance, skepticism, institutional barriers. I need someone who doesn't fold under pressure. You spent 10 years under pressure and came out stronger. He transformed my trauma into professional qualification. The skills I'd learned fighting for my freedom became the skills that would define my career. I'd like 24 hours to think about it, I said. Of course, Montague said. Take the time you need. That night in my hotel room, I looked at the graduation photo Mom had given me. The girl in that picture was smiling, hopeful, unbroken. She'd dreamed of medical school, of helping people, of building something meaningful. This wasn't medical school, but it was close. Patient advocacy, healthcare access, using my voice to fix systems that failed people. I sent the email, January 6, 2020, the beginning. Dear Dr. Kirkland, I accept your offer. When do I start? His response came within minutes. January 6, 2020. Welcome to Yale. December flew past in logistics. I packed my apartment, shipped boxes to New York, said goodbye to Opal over lunch in Chicago. She hugged me tight and told me to call if I ever needed her. You won't, she said, but call anyway. On January 5, 2020, the night before I started my new job, I drove past the old house one final time. New owners had already moved in. The lights were on, warm and golden through the windows. A different life happening in the space where mine had been trapped. I didn't slow down. I kept driving until the old house disappeared in my rearview mirror. By the time I reached my apartment, it felt like someone else's memory. The next morning, my new life began. The cursor blinked in the password field, waiting for me to decide who I wanted to be. January 6, 2020, 8:47 a.m. My first day as Director of Strategic Marketing at Yale Medical School's Patient Advocacy Program. I sat at my desk in my Chicago apartment setting up my work email. The screen prompted, create password, minimum 12 characters. No one watched over my shoulder. No cameras recorded my keystrokes. No one would intercept this password, access my account, read my correspondence, control my professional life. I chose Recovery Begins 2020. 14 characters. Strong password. My password. I typed it without fear, without second guessing, without wondering if someone would use it against me later. The account activated. Welcome to Yale Medical School. I made coffee in my own kitchen. The machine hummed and gurgled, familiar morning sounds. The steam rose, carrying the scent of dark roast I'd chosen myself at the grocery store last week. No one had suggested a different brand. No one had mentioned I was making it too strong or too weak or wrong. I poured it hot and drank it immediately. Not lukewarm because I'd been interrupted. Not cold because I'd forgotten it while doing someone else's tasks. Not reheated in a microwave an hour later. Hot, strong, exactly how I liked it. It burned my tongue a little. It was perfect. For the first time in 5 years, coffee tasted like choice. My phone rang at 11:30, Opal's name on the screen. How's the first day going, she asked. I'm reading through patient case studies and program development plans, I said. It's a lot to learn, but it's good. Really good. And how does it feel? I looked out my window at Chicago traffic, people moving through their Monday morning lives. It feels like breathing after 10 years underwater, I said. Opal laughed. Good. You earned every breath. I'll send you my invoice for therapy fees. Put it on Thane's tab, I said. Already did, she said. Seriously though, you did it. You're here. You made it to the other side. We made it, I corrected. I couldn't have done this alone. You could have, Opal said. But you didn't have to. That's the difference. After the call ended, I sat by the window during my lunch break and thought about the journey. From forged email to director of strategic marketing. From surveillance cameras to autonomy. From trapped to free. Vincent Holloway's forensic analysis. Montague Kirkland's 10-year-old call logs. Irene Upshaw's birthday party video. My mother's audio recording. Opal's strategic precision. Every piece of evidence, every small act of courage, every person who kept receipts when I couldn't. 10 years to bury me, 2 years to dig myself out. The cost had been brutal. The isolation, the gaslighting, the stolen opportunities, the surveillance, the financial control. 5 years of my life spent serving a family that valued my labor at $200,000 while telling me I had no worth. But the victory was real. Hot coffee tasted like the first breath after drowning. After work, I opened the small wooden box I'd kept in my dresser drawer since the divorce finalized. The wedding ring sat inside gold band, dulled with time. I'd carried it from the old house to this apartment without quite knowing why. Now I knew. I'd been waiting for the right moment to let it go. Today was that moment. I put on my coat and walked to the park 3 blocks from my apartment. Winter sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across empty benches and bare trees. The air was cold and sharp, the kind of cold that makes your lungs work harder. I sat on a bench facing west, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The ring sat heavy in my coat pocket. I don't need to keep this anymore, I said to no one, to everyone, to myself. It didn't mean anything now. It never really had. Thane had given it to me as part of a long con prop in a decade-long performance where I was both audience and victim. The marriage it represented was built on surveillance lies and systematic control. Time to let it go. I took the ring from my pocket and looked at it one last time. Gold against weathered wood. Such a small object to carry so much weight. I set it on the bench beside me. Then I stood and walked away. 10 steps, 20, 50. I didn't turn around. Someone would find it. Someone else's story now. Maybe they'd keep it, sell it, wonder about the woman who left a wedding ring on a park bench in January. Maybe they'd recognize it for what it was, evidence of an ending. Walking home, the sun fully set now, I thought about what Thane and his family had tried to do. They buried me. They buried my medical school acceptance, my career opportunities, my financial independence, my professional identity, my voice. They systematically dismantled every path I might take away from them and called it love, called it family, called it protection. But they made one critical mistake. They didn't know I was a seed. You can bury a woman, but if she's a seed, you just planted her future. What you bury doesn't always die. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it gathers strength in the darkness. Sometimes it sends roots down deep and pushes stems up toward any crack of light it can find. Thane spent 10 years trying to keep me small, contained, dependent. He built elaborate systems of surveillance and control. He forged documents. He intercepted calls. He manipulated finances. He orchestrated my isolation with surgical precision. He thought he was burying me. He was planting me. And seeds do one thing: when buried, they grow toward the light. I unlocked my apartment door with my own key in my own name in a building I chose. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and do it again. Make coffee how I liked it. Choose my own passwords. Build patient advocacy programs. Answer to no one but myself. And the day after that. And every day after, until being free stopped feeling like a miracle and started feeling like life. And to you listening to my story, remember this. The person who loves you will never build a prison around your future. For too long, I made excuses for the control. I told myself it was care, protection, family, loyalty. I ignored the warning signs, the intercepted calls, the isolation, the way every opportunity seemed to disappear. Don't make my mistake. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. If the people who claim to love you are threatened by your growth, they don't actually love you. I learned that freedom isn't just about leaving, it's about rebuilding. It's about choosing yourself, even when everyone around you benefits from your silence. The evidence I gathered, the witnesses who spoke up, the legal battle, all of it mattered. But what mattered more was the moment I decided I deserved better. I believe God put me through this journey to show me my own strength, to teach me that buried seeds eventually grow toward the light. Faith carried me when evidence wasn't enough. And healing came when I stopped waiting for apologies from people who would never give them. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have stayed and fought, or left the moment you found evidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're new here, subscribe to Her Drama Stories for more stories of resilience. Thank you for staying until the very end. Your time means everything to me. Remember, some details in this story have been fictionalized for storytelling purposes. What matters most is the message you deserve a life where you choose your own path. Until next time, take care of yourself.